Part 7. Traditional Chinese Medicine, Infertility, Crazy Social Death Patients. Author, Cold Shower in Winter. Chapter 61. Bai slowly closed his eyes, and then took a deep breath. There was a great doubt in his heart. The couple is obviously 40 years old and still has a high-level physical examination every year. How could this happen? His supreme pulse control technique is equivalent to a cheating weapon, and he just spied on the woman's perineum. So I took a closer look. It was found that the development of the woman below was significantly retarded. The eldest sister, who is 40 years old, Sakura, is still the same as a girl. Of course, this can be explained. When I was a child, I experienced an earthquake, and my fear hurt my kidneys. In the view of traditional Chinese medicine, the kidney is the main reproduction, the second stool, and the opening of the second yin. So it's understandable that there are white tigers in that place. And this can also be explained in the anatomy of Western medicine, because the kidney and some nerves are divided from the cells of the same germ layer during embryonic development, and they are a one-dimensional and two-branch relationship, which means that one party is injured and the other party will be affected. So if a girl who took antibiotics a lot when she was a child hurt her kidneys, it is easy to become white tiger. And becoming white tiger, often accompanied by a lack of apricot desire. This is understandable. But what made Bai puzzled was that the film in the woman's boulevard was still intact. This is very unbelievable. CNM is not broken? This means that these two have been married for almost 6 years now, and they have never had sex together. The man has never been straight into it. Hundreds of millions of elite soldiers have never been sent to attack the fortress. Unbelievable. Bai frowned directly, looked at Yan Shijun, and then poked his wrist. With the assistance of the system, a shocking truth emerges. He unexpectedly found that this guy was just like the ninth uncle of the zombie film, and he was 40 years old and still had a child's pee. This Yan Shijun has never had any bad habits, and the abstinence treasure essence is too outrageous, and it has reached a kind of psychological cleanliness. Then, Bai's eyes widened, and he looked at Yan Shijun in a daze, and his heart was shocked. Big brother, you never go into battle with a gun, so you still come to check the infertility of a fart? Why are you looking at me? You don't have to look so innocent and wronged, right? You haven't done any work, how can you conceive a baby? People are a good woman who can't cook without rice, you have everything for both, why can't you make firewood? You shouldn't be seeing an infertility doctor at all, you should see a psychiatrist. Wait, no, you're PhD students. If you can get a doctorate and do national scientific research, your psychological quality will not be so bad, and you still have problems with both of you at the same time. Is this a cognitive problem? 330 Bai exhaled and looked into the eyes of the two of them fixedly, trying to restore the truth. Will they not understand the way of reproduction that even primitive people know? Or rather, don't they have primal impulses? It is foreseeable that the woman's apricot desire is low, but the man is not. This Yan Shijun definitely has some kind of cognitive impairment. But even so, don't you know that if you want to have a baby, you must be in harmony with yin and yang? Bai pondered, puzzled. What is the secret in this? Is it the distortion of psychology or the degradation of morality that gave them the idea of using mental control to have a baby? It seems that it can only be found out through good cross-examination. The host is detected and the diagnosis begins. Select diagnosis result publication method to be enabled. Option 1, vaguely say the patient's problem and don't let the patient die. Use cryptic words to explain the situation to the patient, but the patient is likely to not understand, or will not correct it if he is deaf. Reward, none. Option 2, tell the patient that if he wants to create a man, he has to lie down. Mercilessly point out the patient's problems, tell them that they can't make a baby in the same room and different beds, and they can't make a baby in the same bed. Reward, God-level prescription. God-level prescription, everything can be used as medicine to treat medicine, the pharmacological effect is impeccable, and the right medicine can be used to minimize the toxicity and side effects in the system, so that the host can become a master of prescriptions. Hear the icy electronic sound. Bai Ye's heart moved, and the corners of his mouth suddenly hooked up a smile. God-level potion technique. Prescription is a skill and discipline that must combine theory and practice. As the saying goes, the law follows the evidence, the prescription comes from the law, and the prescription is made by medicine. If you know how to make prescriptions, you can customize many prescriptions. You must know that in the current Dragon Country, many old Chinese medicine practitioners can obtain national honors as long as they have a reliable prescription in their lifetime. If you become a master of prescriptions, then dispensing medicine and making prescriptions will not be easy to catch, and all kinds of honors will be available at that time. At the same time, in the long course of history, many ancient recipes recorded in history have disappeared, and if there is this God-level prescription, maybe we can restore those famous ancient recipes in Chinese history. This is of great significance. At the same time, it is important to know that the efficacy of traditional Chinese medicine will be affected by many factors such as environment, dosage, processing, decoction method, etc., which will inevitably cause toxic side effects. However, the skills rewarded by the system can minimize the toxic side effects, and this alone is already very invincible. Come to think of this. Bai Ye looked at Yan Shijun and his wife, as if there was no doubt, more tolerance and understanding. After all, humans are inherently strange species, and we must respect the surprise of human beings, and sometimes the gap between humans is greater than the gap between humans and gorillas. At this time, reporter Xiao Sa saw that Bai Ye had been frowning and checking his pulse, and it was not easy to be stunned in a daze. He stepped aside and spoke to the camera. Ladies and gentlemen, Yan Shijun and his wife can be described as a model of inspirational and moving the Dragon Kingdom, and their growth stories are the same as everyone's, but they are different. Due to the lack of a family, their education as a child was shattered, resulting in poor grades in primary school, and they almost didn't even get into high school in middle school. But the two knew that knowledge changes fate, so they worked hard in high school, and then they were admitted to university. Of course, some people may know that they went to ordinary universities. But they were not willing to do this, perhaps as early as a young age, planted the seeds of scientific research. When they arrived at college, they also worked hard, and when others were in love games, they were working hard in the library. Later, they were all admitted to the graduate school in Qingbei, and made an appointment to take the doctoral examination, and at the same time agreed to get married after graduating from the doctorate. This way. Bai Ye was hesitating how to say the question of Yan Shijun and his wife. Just when I heard Xiao Sa's words, I suddenly had a hint of enlightenment in my heart. It seems that many things are really predestined. The education that these two men received from childhood in that area was clearly lacking. Come to think of this. Bai Ye looked at the two of them and said seriously. Both, I have a thorough understanding of your situation. Let's start with the conclusion, your body is very healthy, and there is no infertility at all. And the reason why I haven't been able to get pregnant until now is also a very special and bizarre reason. Later, I will reveal it, and promise that when you go back, there will be joy within a month. But now, I have a few questions, and I can't help but want to ask them both. As soon as this remark came out, everyone was a little dumbfounded. They were still doubting the accuracy of Bai Ye's two-handed pulse just now, and they made a diagnosis in the blink of an eye. Even if you brag, you have to have a bottom line. And said that there is no infertility problem. There is no problem. Will it be that you can't have a baby after 5 years of marriage? Xiao Sa heard Bai Ye's words just now, and immediately stopped explaining the camera. Is also staring dryly, chewing on Bai Ye's words repeatedly, trying to analyze the underlying logic. The results are simply unanalyzable, and I feel ridiculous. These words were actually said by the elite members of the Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group. So he couldn't help but look at Bai Ye and asked, "Dr. Bai, after you just checked the pulse that shocked the quartet, did you diagnose the crux of the infertility of Yan Shijun and his wife?" "Exactly." Hearing Xiao Sa's question, Bai Ye nodded and replied very seriously. The voice fell. Xiao Sa gasped, and then his eyes narrowed slightly. If you read a violent novel, go to Filu Novel Network. He was ready to spend a day tracking and reporting, but he didn't think it would be done in less than 5 minutes. In the 5 years since they got married, they have been doing the National High Standard Physical Examination every month, and recently they are still doing the most professional Chinese medicine dialectical observation in the country at the Imperial Doctor's family, but they have not found anything. But when I got here, this young Dr. Bai used a random way to take the pulse, and there was actually a result. It's incredible. If he didn't know that Bai Ye was a member of the Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group, looking at this humble little Chinese medicine hall, Xiao Sa really felt that Bai Ye was a Jianghu Langzhon who could only brag. Yes, that's really good. It seems that the infertility case of Yan Shijun and his wife, which has attracted the attention of the whole country, will come to light today. Xiao Sa restrained his embarrassed expression and showed a Peugeot smile. But I don't know what new Dr. Bai has discovered. With the fall of Xiao Sa's voice, everyone looked at the White Knight at the same time. Live room. Anchor, don't drop the chain, Yan Shijun is my idol. Anchor, you are obviously rigorous, how can you use your hands to check the pulse? That is a move that laymen dare not use. Have you noticed that the situation of Yan Shijun and his wife is quite similar to the previous two? Could it be that there is some bloody plot? Impossible, absolutely impossible. I am a colleague of Yan Shijun and his wife, and their biggest possibility is that they are under too much mental pressure, and it has been clinically found that excessive mental stress in women will lead to the blockage of the L-tube. Worry. Does taking the pulse show that a person is under a lot of mental pressure? Nonsense. It's just as nonsense as the anchor holding the pulse with both hands. It doesn't feel right this time. The anchor seems to be creating a gimmick for the effect of the show. Shouldn't he be consuming Yan Shijun's popularity? I don't understand. Chinese medicine understands the pulse is the pulse, and the pulse is nothing more than the qi and blood deficiency of the 5 internal organs. Since there is no problem, how to find out the problem of infertility? Haha. Looking at the anchor's eyes just now, I have a hunch that there will be big melons. Everyone wait and see. Huang Xiaowai looked at the live broadcast room, and when she heard Bai Ye's words, she pursed her lips. He, it's not a small tone. I'd like to see what you justify. Huang Yaoshi originally planned to leave. After all, there is nothing to analyze about infertility, so it's a big deal to do IVF. However, when he heard Bai Ye's outrageous words, he immediately stirred up emotions again. He looked at the White Knight with sharp eyes. This kid's face looks very upright, but what he does and what he says, why is it so frivolous? What does Lao Liang like about this kid? Hearing his grandfather's words, Huang Xiaowai suddenly remembered that his grandfather was very good at reading faces, and couldn't help asking. Grandpa, just by looking at Bai Ye's face, what kind of person do you think he is? What kind of person? Huang Yaoshi heard this, and his beard shook slightly. Looking loyal and upright, but seeking medical treatment, in the eyes of Grandpa, no matter how good he is at pulse acupuncture and massage, if he doesn't know how to prescribe medicine, it is medical waste. Hear this. Huang Xiaowai nodded slightly, knowing prescriptions in the field of traditional Chinese medicine can be regarded as entering the room. And to be proficient in medicine, it is not for anyone. Even for the children of a family of traditional Chinese medicine, it is difficult to improve without years of experience and practical accumulation and theoretical support. This White Knight is a few years older than me, and it is estimated that he can prescribe medicine at most, but it will be too difficult for him to understand the prescription. After all, if you look at infertility Chinese medicine, you only need to know 2 or 3 prescriptions to prescribe medicine dialectically to the patient. How complicated can it be to regulate kidney deficiency? Huang Xiaowei said to herself, continuing to look at the handsome Bai Ye in the live broadcast room, curious about what he would say next. Best Traditional Chinese Medicine Museum. Bai Ye looked at Yan Shijun and his wife, and after seeing them nodding, he asked. Ms. Ye, you are very healthy, and you can see that you have been exercising all year round. However, when you were a student, you were not in good health, right? Hear this. Yan Shijun was slightly stunned. Just now he was still slandering Bai Ye's medical skills, but he didn't expect that Bai Ye's first sentence after a pause was to tell the truth. He and his lover were both in poor health when they were students, and because of this, they paid attention to exercise when they grew up. Seeing both of them, Bai Ye nodded in unison and continued. Do you often have tinnitus? I am more afraid of cold than my peers. When the season is changed, it is also easy to catch colds and rhinitis. Sometimes you find out that you have juvenile gray hair. There are even autistic tendencies. As soon as these words came out, looking at Bai Ye's confident smile, Yan Shijun and Xie Zhaoqin glanced at each other, revealing a hint of surprise. He nodded. Yes, Dr. Bai can actually see these things through the pulse just now. Hearing this, Bai Ye smiled slightly at the corner of his mouth and spoke. It's just a guess. I just heard that both of you experienced earthquakes when you were young, and you grew up in a welfare home, which means that you have experienced extreme fear. If you are afraid of hurting the kidney qi will leak and become deficient, and the deficiency will be full of diseases. In this case, even if the two are talented, they will not be able to cope with their studies because they are born with damages. Said. Bai Ye looked at Yan Shijun's lover Xie Zhaoqin again and spoke. Ms. Xie's first menstrual period should be quite late, right? A normal woman has 14 menstrual periods, and Ms. Xie's words, judging from the pulse, should be around 18. The voice fell. Xie Zhaoqin's face was shocked. She didn't expect Bai Ye to be able to speculate that they could only talk about the present when they met other old Chinese medicine doctors. I didn't expect Bai Ye to be able to trace back to the past, and I couldn't help but change my opinion of Bai Ye. Then he pursed his lips and nodded. Dr. Bai is amazing. I did come on my period at the age of 18, years later than my peers. I thought I was a tomboy. After getting the verification, Bai Ye looked at Yan Shijun again and spoke. Mr. Yan, your student days should be similar to Ms. Ye. Have you paid attention to when your Adam's apple grew? Your voice change period should not be visible until high school. If you loved sports at that time, you should have had a broken bone, right? Hear this. Yan Shijun's face was also stunned, and then her eyes lit up. He just thought that Bai Ye might have guessed right. But now when I listen to Bai Ye's analysis, I can't help but have a new understanding of Bai Ye's ability. Because Bai Ye really said one of his past things right. Not bad. When I was in high school, I fell and slipped on my bicycle and broke my forearm. Bai Ye nodded. It's normal, the main bone of the kidney is marrow, and the kidney qi is weak and the bones are naturally poor. After getting these verifications, the corners of Bai Ye's mouth hooked an arc, and it seemed that some things had already been hinted at. It's time to ask more explicit questions. Traditional Chinese medicine, infertility, crazy social death patients. Author, Cold Shower in Winter. Chapter 62. At this time, Li Jiajia's head was still a little cloudy. After replacing Bai Ye, she kept thinking that the pulse control operation just now should be fine. However, no matter from which TCM dialectical perspective cannot be seen, it is impossible to identify the pulse of infertility in TCM. This made her feel that the situation of Yan Shijun and his wife might be a deeper lesion, and it might also be a lesion diagnosed by Western medicine. But think about it, both of them are important scientific research and technical personnel of the country, and they have high standard physical examinations every month, and their infertility is also valued by the state. Therefore, there should be no misdiagnosis and misdiagnosis. Li Jiajia bit her lip, puzzled, and couldn't help but feel ashamed. Yan Shijun's brother and they came to Chinese medicine because Western medicine could not determine the cause of the disease, but they couldn't figure it out at all. I still have to be the boss. But when she saw Bai Ye taking the pulse of Yan Shijun and his wife with both hands at the same time, her heart suddenly shook fiercely a little. How can Chinese medicine take the pulse of two people at the same time? It's against the norm. And it's impossible to be accurate. Just as she was thinking about whether to remind Bai Ye, she didn't expect Bai Ye to stop. It also came to a conclusion that made everyone unbelievable. That is, Yan Shijun and his wife are really completely healthy, and infertility actually has another hidden reason. This made her even more confused. Ben wanted to interject and say something. But in the face of Xiao Sa's interview camera, he felt dry mouth and nervous at the same time. She felt that White Knight's diagnosis was even more ridiculous and fantastical. I really can't help but want to remind Bai Ye and let him know the seriousness of the current occasion. There is not only the attention of netizens in the live broadcast room, but also the attention of relevant personnel in the scientific research circle and the country. Such an irresponsible conclusion may lead to a ban. This is very serious. Originally, traditional Chinese medicine was severely suppressed by Western medicine. If on such an important occasion, boss, as a member of the Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group, said vague and irresponsible words, it is easy for people with intentions to make a fuss. As the daughter of the secretary of the Imperial Capital Municipal Party Committee, she is well aware of the dangers here. This is not just a simple infertility check, but a special case that may be of concern to many forces. Come to think of this, Li Jiajia couldn't help but sweat. But the good thing is, she seems to have found that she was overly worried, and her boss actually really saw the fame. They can also combine the pulse and the earthquake experience of their couple's childhood to infer some growth and development experiences. Awesome, boss. All I know is that the pulse is a real-time reflection of the body's health. I can't imagine that you can draw inferences and break the limitations of time and space. How is this done? It seems, even if you talk a little nonsense later, you can keep it decent. Li Jiajia thought in broken hearts. It's just that the big stone in my heart has never landed. Huang Xiaowai looked at their conversation in the live broadcast room of the White Knight. Beautiful eyes blinked. It's funny, and it's really going to find another way to stall for time. What about what happened to Yan Shijun and his wife when they were students? It has nothing to do with their current infertility situation. I think you just can't diagnose the exact cause, and you still want to retain decency, so you show off that bit of Chinese medicine common sense in front of the camera. When Huang Yaoshi heard his granddaughter say this, he frowned slightly, and then stroked his white beard. Yo-Yo said. Strange. The way this kid spoke and analyzed his thoughts just now. And the temperament that suddenly came out. It's quite like your grandfather. Huang Yaoshi's voice fell. Huang Xiaowai's eyes were stunned, and he blurted out puzzled. Grandpa, what are you muttering? No. It's nothing. Seeing Huang Xiaowai's doubts, Huang Yaoshi shook his head, perhaps he had just had a delusion. However, he has been attracted by the temperament of the White Knight. Keep looking, didn't he say that the cause had been diagnosed? I'm going to see what I can say. Live room at this time. Haha, can anyone tell me that this two-handed way of taking the pulse can really call the pulse? The anchor's mental broadband is multi-threaded, and the old Chinese medicine doctor I know can only take the pulse of one person at a time. Is there a possibility The anchor doesn't know the information through the pulse at all, just through speculation. Don't forget that the anchor can also look at the face. But even if the anchor's speculation is completely correct, what does that have to do with the symptoms of infertility now? I, Zhao Rishan, am worried about the anchor with my real name. If the anchor drops the chain on this occasion, I'm afraid that I won't be able to mix in the Chinese medicine industry, so who should I look for to see the waste? Most of the netizens are not a big deal to watch the excitement, and at the same time, they are also following Bai Ye's thoughts and thinking about the reason for the infertility of Yan Shijun and his wife. This way. After a brief exchange with Yan Shijun and his wife, Bai Ye verified it for a while. His eyes looked straight at Xie Ziokin. Ms. Ye, forgive me for taking the liberty of it. When you usually have a physical examination, have you ever done a shade color ultrasound? This, hearing Bai Ye's question, Xie Ziokin's face stiffened slightly. This is a very private question. She didn't want to answer, but thinking of Bai Ye's high-level performance just now, she hesitated for a moment and said frankly. Nope. Because I have a regular holiday every month. Ultrasound for pelvic monitoring is sufficient. Oh, yes. Hearing Xie Ziokin say this, Bai Ye frowned, then nodded, and continued to ask. Is there a rule-out causes such as blocked fallopian tubes? Never done imaging monitoring either. Bai Ye's voice fell. Xie Ziokin's face changed, and there was a trace of surprise in her eyebrows. Just now, I felt confident about Bai Ye's professionalism, but now I immediately doubted it. I couldn't help but speak. Dr. Bai, don't you know that if your fallopian tubes are blocked, there will be pain in your lower abdomen? There will be an increase in secretions, and there may be symptoms such as menstrual cramps. But as I just said, I have a normal period. And an old Chinese medicine doctor has checked my pulse before, and everything is normal with qi, blood, and viscera. And in the face of Xie Ziokin's doubts, Bai Ye smiled faintly, and inadvertently saw that Xie Ziokin's mouth had a tooth socket that was empty. I couldn't help but think of something, so I continued to ask. Ms. Ye, I'll ask again. In other words, you have never done a more penetrating Western medical test that penetrates deep into the uterine cavity. Right. Hear this. Xie Ziokin's eyebrows frowned slightly, and her tone was already a little cold. Dr. Bai, do you know gynecology? This is a matter of priority. I have said that my period is normal, and the health of the uterine cavity can be determined by the characteristics of menstruation. So I don't need to do those in-depth tests, just ultrasound is enough. She said this very politely. Everyone heard the smell of gunpowder in Xie Ziokin's words. At this time, Li Jiajia's palms were full of sweat, and her heart was even more up. The boss is really, too. How can such an embarrassing question be asked? There are indeed many details that can be known by discerning menstruation. Checking for infertility itself is a good way to rule out, but a normal period can already rule out many factors. Again, people are national physical examination specifications, and naturally all aspects are considered comprehensively. What is the boss questioning? What a shame. Live room. Ouch. The anchor has dropped the chain. What's? I was still thinking about substituting as the anchor and pretending to be B. How did I make such a low-level mistake? It's strange, I've talked about the common sense that my girlfriend knows, and the anchor is asking knowingly. It's not good, it feels like the anchor is going to overturn. Brothers, do you have a feeling, this is the real level of the anchor, and the actors who have been specially looking for the script before? Ha! It makes sense. I said, why is it so disobedient? How can there be such a young Chinese medicine doctor? Look, Yan Shijun and his wife are the best proof that their appearance is not in the anchor's plan, so the anchor's problem is exposed. According to what the upstairs says, then Li Jiajia is a trust. Read the violent novel, go to the Fila Novel Network. I have long wanted to say that she is trusted. Her father is the secretary of the Imperial Capital Municipal Party Committee, and he must know that the country attaches great importance to infertility, so he encourages his daughter to participate in the interaction. Is this the truth? The anchor not only overturned, but also faked. Nima deceived Lao Tzu's feelings. But, I always feel that the anchor already knows the truth, but he is just trying to find out step by step. At this time, netizens were still admiring Bayes' analysis just now, and after seeing Bayes' donkey's question, they couldn't help but put their previous doubts out again. Question the professionalism of the White Knight. However, the public lacks reason, and if there is a doubt, more and more people will question it. Time. The live broadcast room is full of arguments about watching the declining White Knight. Baye didn't have the time to care about the barrage, but looked directly at Sieziokan and said with a faint smile. Ms. Let me make another bold guess. Originally, the physical examination was done with shade color ultrasound, but because you don't like external instruments entering the body, you checked this option to exclude it, and the medical examiner also believed your statement. After all, it does make sense. Both Chinese and Western medicine can judge the health of the body through menstruation. As soon as this remark came out, everyone was about to complain, and even Xiao Sa couldn't stand it. Found that Sieziokan's face suddenly became solemn and thoughtful. Then he said leisurely, Dr. Bai, you're pretty weird. I thought you were too young to understand gynecology, but your guess just now was indeed completely correct. But how do you see that? Hear this. Everyone was stunned for a moment, so it seemed that Baye did not drop the chain, but more like a good temptation. It's simple. Hearing Sieziokan's question, Baye looked at her and explained. I noticed that you have a vacant space in your posterior molars, which is a very important place to chew, but you would rather leave it empty than have a prosthesis. Combined with what you just said, I like traditional culture. It's enough for me to speculate that you don't like Western medicine, and you praise that your body is still good in its original form. You don't wear glasses, you don't have dentures, you don't stuff all kinds of weird medical devices into your body, even if it's for a checkup. Zero begging for flowers. I'm not wrong, am I? Baye finished speaking. Sieziokan couldn't help but fall into a short silence. It's not because what Baye said is wrong, but it's too right, like a friend who has lived with her for decades. Yan Shijun was also stunned. He was at the same frequency as his wife, and he was also shocked by Baye's judgment. I didn't expect that the young Baye looked at people so accurately. And everyone looked at the expressions of their husband and wife, and naturally knew that Baye was right again. But that's a bit of a stretch. Sieziokan exhaled twice, looked at Baye, and spoke. Dr. Bai is really good, you have seen everything, and you have discovered all my little problems. But what does this have to do with our situation? Didn't you just say that you have found out the cause of our infertility disease? Then please let Dr. Bai speak up. Baye heard Sieziokan say this, pinched his eyebrows, and said slowly. Don't worry. I'll tell you. Before I do that, though, I have one more thing to be sure. Said. Baye looked at the stunned Li Jiajia and spoke. Jiajia, why are you stunned? No, hearing the question, Li Jiajia smiled and smiled. Boss, you're really sick with this hand. It feels like a village with willows and flowers. Well, it's time to tell the truth. White Knight patted her on the shoulder, and then whispered in her ear in a voice that only she could hear. I took Ms. Ye to have a checkup of the lower hallway, and I suspect that her CNM is still intact. What? Hearing this, Li Jiajia, who was still looking forward to it just now, suddenly widened her eyes. After hesitating for a while, he whispered in Baye's ear. Help, boss, I thought you were pretty awesome just now, how could you come to such a conclusion? You're trying to embarrass me. The CNM is still complete, doesn't that mean? Hurry up, before Li Jiajia finished speaking, Bai Yegan laughed twice and ordered. It's outrageous, but it's the closest thing to the truth. Looking at Bai Ye's resolute eyes, Li Jiajia suddenly felt that the whole person was confused. If the boss's words were right, wouldn't it be ridiculous? CNM is still complete, so infertility. It's been a few years since they've been married, haven't they ever had sex together? The boss is really, too. It's understandable that saliva drowse on tadpoles, which is utterly ridiculous. Shaking her head, Li Jiajia took a deep breath. Then he looked directly at Bai Ye, and said seriously in front of Xiao Sa and the camera in the live broadcast room. The owner was sorry. I can't agree with your views and judgments. It's ridiculous, it's speechless. Said. Li Jiajia pursed her lips and muttered puzzled. Also, boss, are you prejudiced against Yan Shijun's brother? How can you come to such a mentally retarded conclusion? As soon as this remark came out, the air was silent for a few seconds. Then the live broadcast room exploded. Oh hoo! What's going on? Is the anchor overturning? No, looking at Li Jiajia's attitude, did an accident happen outside the script? Alas, it seems that the anchor is still off the chain, and most of the previous consultations were scripted, but this time the real treatment was completely messed up. I'm really curious, what did the anchor say to Jiajia? Disappointed. Did you hear what Li Jiajia said? She was disappointed in the anchor. Family, obviously, after there was no script, the anchor showed her feet. No, the anchor was quite stable just now, and the deadlock was reversed. Why did the chain fall somewhere? Wait, maybe the anchor has discovered some terrible truth. At this time, netizens are curious about why Li Jiajia suddenly fell out with Bai Ye. Tomorrow and night have just taken over, and the truth is about to be revealed. At this time, Bai Ye looked at Li Jiajia's reaction and understood it very well. In other words, when he first came to this conclusion, he was stunned. However, as the exchange progressed, the white knight gradually became more and more visible. Now only the most direct evidence is needed to prove the assertion. It would be ridiculous and unconvincing to say the conclusion without doing the checking. But Li Jiajia refused to give Xie Ziokan a gynecological examination. This stumped Bai Ye. He was a big man, and it was definitely not good for Ms. Ye to do a boulevard inspection. What should I do? Bai Ye frowned slightly, and suddenly thought of someone, but fortunately she had her contact information. So I immediately picked up my phone and dialed out. At this time, Obstetrics and Gynecology Hospital affiliated to Moda University. After Lin Wanfan finished today's report, he was free. The interior of the hospital is still being renovated, and there are fewer people willing to get married and have children, so there are still no patients today. So I recalled the massage techniques of the White Knight yesterday, and I really wanted to visit and ask for advice, but unfortunately I was afraid of disturbing. Just then, the phone rang. Hey, Master Bai. Ms. Lin, I want you to do me a favor. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Traditional Chinese medicine, infertility, crazy social death patients. Author, Cold Shower in Winter. Chapter 63. After Bai Ye hung up the phone, he breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Ms. Lin Wanfan promised to come over immediately, otherwise he would really not be able to continue. He glanced at Li Jiajia, and he didn't know what this girl was thinking. The whole person was sweating. At this time, Li Jiajia looked at Bai Ye blankly, but she was worried about the status of traditional Chinese medicine in China. She is thinking about Bai Ye's absurd conclusion, which will definitely be infinitely amplified and interpreted by the live broadcast room, and there will definitely be many Western doctors who will come out to sing the opposite, and even use this to suppress Chinese medicine. After all, Yan Shijun and his wife are both popular big people, and they are not casual ordinary people. Li Jiajia sighed again and again in her heart, and her head was thinking quickly about how to try her best to save it. And the key to everything is not to let Bai Ye say his conclusions in a big court. Come to think of this. Li Jiajia looked at Bai Ye embarrassedly and spoke. Boss, keep talking. Surely you haven't been diagnosed yet, have you? Li Jiajia, what are you nervous about? Hearing this, Bai Ye's brows tightened slightly, and he couldn't help but laugh. I'm not nervous. Li Jiajia grinned awkwardly, looked at Yan Shijun and his wife, and couldn't help but feel guilty. You're sweating so much. Looking at Li Jiajia's situation, Bai Ye patted her on the shoulder. I don't blame you. Today is your first day on the job, and you're not used to my rhythm yet. I have already called the attending physician of the obstetrics and gynecology hospital affiliated to Moda University to come and help with the examination. Hear this. Li Jiajia's eyes widened again and asked puzzled. Boss, why are you so stubborn? How can you come to such a ridiculous conclusion just by taking the pulse and asking questions? Li Jiajia has tried her best to lower her voice, but she was still heard by the live broadcast room and reporter Ziosa. Xiao Sa couldn't help but be curious, and walked forward with the microphone. Dr. Bai, you have just diagnosed the cause of infertility for Yan Shijun and his wife. Is there a problem now? Or is there a disagreement in the diagnosis? Hear this. Bai Ye looked up at Xiao Sa and said with a light smile. Yes, Mr. Sa. It's just a little fork off. However, the truth will be revealed in 30 soon. Please wait a moment. When Xiao Sa heard this, even though his heart was full of doubts, he nodded politely. Then looked at the barrage in the live broadcast room on both sides. Was stunned and said solemnly. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt that Dr. Bai is indeed a member of the Huaxia Imperial Physician Group. Maybe the truth is a bit unbelievable, but please believe in Chinese medicine and believe that Dr. Bai will give the perfect answer. You know, Yan Shijun and his wife have been suffering from infertility for 5 years. Dr. Bai finally discovered the clue, even if it may not be the truth, it is also a great contribution to solving the mystery of human infertility. Xiao Sa's words are right. It made the reason of some impulsive netizens in the live broadcast room go online. Definitely. No matter how much he questioned Bai Ye before, he ended up slapping the public in the face. Bai Ye has never dropped the chain in his own field of traditional Chinese medicine. It's like Xiao Sa said. Yan Shijun and his wife have been infertile for 5 years, and the husband and wife are still doctoral students, and they must have spent a lot of effort to conceive a baby. This life is a problem that is difficult for high IQ humans to solve, and Chinese medicine should encourage it if it finds some eyebrows. Why didn't they hear Bai Ye say the reason for the diagnosis, and they began to suspect that there was a script fraud? It's all to blame for those who are prejudiced against Chinese medicine for breaking the rhythm. Li Jiajia also realized that she was a little speechless, and quickly shut up. Fortunately, with Mr. Ziosa controlling the scene, there should not be a too serious TCM rollover accident. Maybe when teacher Lin Wanfen comes over, there will be a more appropriate way to deal with it. I don't know what teacher Lin Wanfen will do after learning Bai Ye's diagnosis. Huang Xiaowai looked at the live broadcast room and laughed dryly. This Li Jiajia is really an eyesore, she is half-dash. What qualifications do you have to point fingers at the members of our Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group? If you want to point fingers at Bai Ye, only we are qualified. Grandpa, you said yes, right? As he spoke, Huang Xiaowai looked at his grandfather Huang Yaoshi. Saw that Huang Yaoshi just watched Bai Ye's every move thoughtfully. Grandpa, what's wrong with you? Asked Huang Xiaowai. Xiaowai, I suddenly feel that this kid Bai Ye may be a talent that can be created. Hearing his granddaughter's question, Huang Yaoshi suddenly replied with a 180-degree turn. At the same time, he explained. Grandpa's physiognomy has never miscalculated. This kid called White Knight has the qualifications to learn Chinese medicine well. Zai, if you don't see him, I would like to accept him as a close disciple. Teach him the way of medicine. Huh, hearing her grandfather say this, Huang Zaiwai's eyes widened and she was puzzled. Grandpa, you don't have to be joking. You just said that the way he took the pulse was insulting to medical ethics. How could you say good things for him? Grandpa, aren't you also a face control? Yan Kong. What is that? Hearing his granddaughter's question, Huang Yaoshi touched his beard and explained Liu. Grandpa was old and dizzy just now, and he didn't make up the face of this kid in front of him. Now looking at your big tablet, I realize that this kid's face is not simple. In ancient times, he was the face of the emperor, and if it wasn't for the court, he would look at him like a meteor, but he was a talent in Anbang. Traditional Chinese medicine heals the country. Look at this kid's thick eyebrows and big eyes, how much he has this temperament. In addition, he can't take the pulse. It doesn't matter, Grandpa, I can teach him to read the tongue. Cut. Hearing what his grandfather said, Huang Zaiwai muttered the corners of his mouth and took a sip of milk tea. Aren't you handsome? Why do you add so many suffixes? As long as he has the appearance of an emperor, then I will return the majesty of my mother to the world. Hear this. Huang Yaoshi smiled. Zaiwai, you haven't grown yet, where did you get the majesty? Grandpa Huang Zaiwai pouted, how can you turn your elbows out? This kid hasn't diagnosed the cause of Yan Shijun and his wife yet. Huang Yaoshi nodded, but his mouth was open. However, looking at the demeanor of this kid in the White Knight, he must have been diagnosed. It's just that the truth may be very strange, and he still needs to verify it. By the way, Zaiwai, when you treated the little couple, did you read their examination report? Yes. Hearing this, Huang Zaiwai nodded seriously. It's all normal. At least in the case that Western medicine has not misdiagnosed and missed the diagnosis, I can't see any problems. Hearing this, Huang Yaoshi nodded. Boulevard color ultrasound, didn't you do it? Nope. Huang Zaiwai explained, maybe the National Physical Examination Unit also thinks that there is no need to do it. After all, Xie Ziokin doesn't want to do it, and her menstruation is normal, and her body is healthy. It's so unscrupulous. Hearing this, Huang Yaoshi said bluntly. It's probably this blind spot that has delayed their condition. Grandpa, that's not going to be. When Huang Zaiwai heard this, she held a negative view. They've been married for 5 or 6 years, unless they've never had sex together, and the problem of the boulevard can be ruled out. Besides, menstruation is normal, and the boulevard must be normal. When Huang Yaoshi heard this, he was non-committal and chose to continue watching the live broadcast room of White Knight. Bai Ye didn't expect Lin Wanfen to arrive so soon. He gave a brief order to Lin Wanfen. Since Lin Wanfen didn't know the situation of Yan Shijun and his wife, he didn't think much about it. Nodded and looked at Xie Ziokin. Ms. Xie, I am Lin Wanfen, the attending physician of the Infertility Department of the Obstetrics and Gynecology Hospital affiliated to Motu University. Please come with me for a simple examination. Don't worry, you don't need cold machinery. It doesn't take a minute to check it out. When Xie Ziokin heard this, a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. After hesitating for a moment, he nodded. Good. Forthwith. Followed Lin Wanfen to the inner room of the medical hall. I'll go too. Seeing this, Li Jiajia also walked in. She really didn't want to wait awkwardly outside. At the same time, she was also curious about Mr. Lin Wanfen's opinion. If you read a violent novel, go to Filu Novel Network. After Bai Ye watched Xie Ziokin and them enter, he turned his head to look at Yan Shijun, the initiator of the oolong. Mr. Yan, there is a key question I would like to ask. Speak. Yan Shijun said politely. Is Mr. Yan's usual desire to be in control? Baya looked at Yan Shijun and asked bluntly. Hear this. Yan Shijun paused slightly, looked at the time on her watch, and then smiled slightly on the corner of her mouth. Dr. Bai, I can't answer your broad question. Let's get back to the topic. Baya noticed his small movements, and said quietly on his face. Then I'll just ask. Mr. Yan usually performs mental pua on his wife. Huh? Hearing Baya say this, Yan Shijun's face suddenly changed slightly, and he asked rhetorically. Dr. Bai, does this have anything to do with the condition we are exploring today? Mr. Yan, I don't mean to be offended. Hearing this, Baya smiled faintly. Then, his fingers tapped on the examination table, and he spoke intriguingly. I'm just curious, don't you two have primal impulses? Or rather, you have all restrained some animalistic barbaric patterns. Or is your pursuit of happiness and dopamine secretion limited to scientific research? As soon as this remark came out, Yan Shijun was stunned, and the corners of her mouth opened slightly. Dr. Bai, I don't understand what you're talking about. Baya looked at Yan Shijun with an expression of disbelief. Mr. Yan, looking at your expression, I can't help but be suspicious. Are you really PhD students? The voice fell. The atmosphere of the entire TCM hall changed immediately. When Xiao Sa heard Baya's words, he also chuckled in his heart, and he was really worried that the interview would get out of control. But fortunately, Hakia said offensive words in a polite and caring tone. But netizens in the live broadcast room felt that Baya was too rude. Is the anchor crazy? How can he say such things to important national scientific researchers? Is the anchor questioning Yan Shijun or the country? Emma, what is the anchor doing? Chun Chun has nothing to do. If you can't diagnose it, is it a personal attack? I just asked about it, it has nothing to do with the condition, don't go astray with the anchor. At this time, when Yan Shijun heard Baya say this, her face began to look bad. Their status in the National Scientific Research Circle is unquestionable, and Baya is no different from insulting people when he says this. However, Yan Shijun looked at the handsome and upright Baya, and also heard that there was no insult in Baya's words, but a sigh. Couldn't help frowning. Dr. Bai, if you have something to say, just say it. Why bother talking about him? Hearing this, Baya nodded, and sighed. Mr. Yan, I just don't understand, you've known each other since childhood. When I was a student, I had a crush on each other, but I didn't get married until I got married. It's just that you've been married for 5 or 6 years, why is your wife still a virgin? The voice fell. It was like a thunderclap on the ground. The atmosphere of the entire Chinese medicine hall suddenly became strange. When Xiao Sa heard Baya's words, he suddenly felt his ears rumble a little. He had been very nervous just now, thinking that Baya would say such complex and difficult technical words, but he didn't expect it to be such a child's play when he opened his mouth. Almost broke his defense. Netizens in the live broadcast room were also stunned. Anchor, do you want to listen to what you're talking about? People have been married for 5 or 6 years, and they are infertile, and they are not brain dead. Don't you have any words in the script? How did you come to such a ridiculous conclusion? Haha. I'm laughing to death, what the hell am I expecting? That's it, Anchor, do you want to say that all the medical experts have been with you for 5 years about the causes of infertility, because they haven't had sex yet? I'm going to tear out my toes in embarrassment. Alas, no, I was a little confident in the anchor just now, why did I suddenly talk nonsense again? Wait. Guys 137, excluding all impossibilities, is there a slight possibility that the anchor's inference is correct? Haha, if the anchor is right, I'll eat 10 caddies of siang upside down. Heard Bai Ye say this. Yan Shijun was stunned and said, "What a virgin, my wife, she is a Pisces woman." As soon as this remark came out, there was a brief silence. And then I don't know how long it was. It's like a speck of dust breaking the peace. Xiao Sa took a sharp breath and looked at Yan Shijun in a daze. Although she was not sure if she could tell if a girl was a virgin or not, it didn't matter. Because of Yan Shijun's answer, something has been proven. This incident made Xiao Sa cry in his heart. "Mr. Yan, what's the matter with you? The virgin that Dr. Bai said just now doesn't mean the constellation. You must have heard it wrong, right? Answer it all over again." At this time, everyone in the live broadcast room also looked at Yan Shijun blankly, and suddenly the barrage that appeared like snowflakes disappeared. They were all savoring Yan Shijun's words, and vaguely, they all found him a little strange. Alas! Bai Ye heard Yan Shijun's words, sighed, and continued to speak. "As I expected, so is your lover, and her exploration of the body has also stopped. You guys, apricot education is really missing. Of course, it's not that bad, and it is precisely because you are so pure, and your kidney qi is abundant in your 20s, and you will not indulge in it, that it has helped you achieve something in your studies. After all, others are busy falling in love, getting married, and having children, and you will only swim in the world of scientific research. You shouldn't know how to love men and women, and you can't empathize, right? In addition, you have been bound by traditional thinking since you were a child, and you regard Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism as a spiritual guideline, which makes you even more elastic, right? You are going further and further away from the wrong perception. Otherwise, you should know that if you want to have a baby, you should have the same room." The voice fell. Yan Shijun swallowed his saliva. When others pressed him, he would instinctively resist. But I didn't expect that some of the speculations that Bai Ye said were completely correct. It's true that he can't empathize with the love of men and women, but he takes it as normal, just like some people like to play games, and some people don't have a cold. Isn't that normal? Also, in the same room? Of course I know. Come to think of this. He spoke immediately. Of course I know I have to have sex with you. We slept in the same room every day. Cover the same quilt, every day. And then, hearing this, Bai Ye's eyes widened as well, encouraging him to continue. What? Yan Shijun was a little stunned. What else? The voice fell. Xiao Sa was stunned, and suddenly he was a little speechless, and it didn't sound like Gao Ji like Yan Shijun said it. That's when it happened. The curtains in the inner room were lifted. Lin Wanfen walked out with Xie Zioken and Li Jiajia. Xie Zioken still looked unfazed, and Li Jiajia's whole face was snow white. Traditional Chinese medicine, infertility, crazy social death patients. Author, Cold Shower in Winter. Chapter 64. Li Jiajia was indeed shocked. Because everything is exactly the same as White Knight deduces. Ms. Yeziokan CNM is actually complete. After she repeatedly confirmed this matter, she felt that the three views of the whole person were about to collapse. Two Kochi scientific research bigwigs, married for 5 or 6 years, still think about having a baby every day, but they have never had sex together. This is even more ridiculous than the moon hitting the earth. She felt like everyone was numb. But fortunately, Lin Wanfen was present at that time. Lin Wanfen's expertise in traditional Chinese and Western medicine, as well as his rich clinical experience, immediately understood the problem. There wasn't much surprise either, and explained. Jia, everyone grows up in a different environment, so the cognition will be very different. I've been in contact with a lot of people in Kochi, who may have a psychological disorder or a lack of sex education. This is not an isolated case. After hearing this, Li Jiajia is still stammering, and the whole person is very demented. Jiajia, in fact, you should understand it like this. Lin Wanfan saw Li Jiajia's doubts and continued to explain. They may think that there is no need for physical contact to reproduce offspring. This is the same as why many highly educated people believe in the horizon theory. Because the more cognitive a person is, the more difficult prejudices and stereotypes are to overcome. Said. Lin Wanfan said leisurely again. In fact, you should be even more shocked at why Dr. Bai was able to judge the cause of their illness so accurately. Such a strange case, even with the most comprehensive dialectics of Chinese medicine, it is difficult to get a glimpse of the truth. You have to have enough out-of-the-box thinking and imagination. But that's not enough. Master Ni once said that Chinese medicine is to look inside from the outside, and collect information from the outside of the body through the 4 diagnoses and references to infer what is happening inside. It's like a police case solving. Everything has to be based on accurate data and inference, but Yan Shijun and his wife are very special, they are too healthy to have much data. Therefore, looking at people's appearances, knowing the past and breaking the present, the 6 classics of yin and yang, and the dialectic of the 8 outlines, these methods must be used, which is a very large amount of brain calculation. If it weren't for the fact that Dr. Bai is a genius in Chinese medicine, he would never have been able to discover the key in the inextricable clues. I heard Mr. Lin explain. Li Jiajia was immediately shocked. It took a while to slowly absorb Lin Wanfan's words. Then my heart rumbled. Couldn't help but think of what he would say in the White Knight just now, and immediately blushed and became ashamed. Actually, Mr. Lin said one less thing. The real power of the boss is that he dares to question authority. After all, Yan Shijun and his wife have strict physical examinations and pregnancy preparation examinations every month of the year. It is impossible for ordinary people to think that they are still perfect. I'm afraid that the doctors who do the medical examination will never think of this. Come to think of this. The doubts in Li Jiajia's heart were gradually replaced by shock. Then he looked at Xie Ziokan in a daze. Sister Xie, I've talked so much to Teacher Lin, and you don't seem to have any reaction at all. Xie Ziokan got dressed and came down from the reception desk. Glanced at the two of them lightly and spoke. You seem to say a lot, but you don't seem to say anything. I've been shocked, I don't even know what you're shocking about. Ah, hearing this, Li Jiajia's eyes suddenly widened and she swallowed her saliva. With an expression of disbelief, he said in a daze. No, don't you realize the seriousness of the problem? When Xie Ziokan heard this, she pursed her lips and showed an intellectual and elegant smile. All I know is that I'm healthy down there, right? The voice fell. Li Jiajia was speechless and choked for a moment. It seems that everything that the boss deduced was correct. If this is changed to other old Chinese medicine doctors, it really can't make such an inference from the boss. How fortunate and unfortunate. Li Jiajia sighed in her heart, and she didn't know what to say. Sister Xie has cognitive problems, could it be that brother Yan Shijun also has cognitive impairment? With such doubts, Li Jiajia laughed dryly twice and spoke. You're healthy, but it's because you're so healthy that you're in trouble. Forget it, let's not explain it yet. Let's get out. The voice fell. Lin Wanfan sighed slightly, and walked out of the inner room with the two of them. And as soon as it came out, the three of them happened to hear Yan Shijun's even more shocking remarks. Li Jiajia froze again, and her whole little face was shocked and snow-white. This is her scientific research idol Yan Shijun, how could she say such mentally retarded words? What? Yan Shijun was a little stunned. Let's sleep together and cover a quilt, what else? As soon as this remark came out, he suddenly felt that everyone was looking at him in a surprised way. I couldn't help but ask. What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Am I not right? After speaking, he found that his lover Xiaokan had already checked it out. He beckoned and asked casually. Xiaokan, how are the test results? It's healthy. Hearing the question, Xiaokan nodded. Hear this. Yan Shijun nodded, then looked at Baya and laughed dryly. Look. We are all healthy. It seems that Dr. Bai is also unable to say the cause of our illness. Instead of spending it so awkwardly, let's go back first. Said. Yan Shijun took Xiaokan's hand and prepared to leave. Wait. Seeing this, Li Jiajia couldn't help but speak. Brother Yan, haven't you discovered the seriousness of the problem? Hearing Li Jiajia say this, Yan Shijun frowned and asked with a puzzled face. What severity? You guys, is this how you understand the same room? Li Jiajia laughed dryly, her face a little unnatural, and continued. In your understanding, to have sex is to sleep together, under the same quilt. But never had a deep physical communication. You've never been on your stomach. As soon as this remark came out, Li Jiajia can be regarded as completely picking out everything. Still, it's a little unbelievable. How can they endure 5 or 6 years of sexless marriage? Or rather, it's not enduring, but neither of them has a primitive impulse, let alone that kind of cognition. What's going on? And everyone also fell with Li Jiajia's words, and all eyes focused on Li Jiajia. Xiao Sa couldn't help but step forward, looked at the excited Li Jiajia, and then at Baya and Lin Wanfen. Then he asked curiously. Dr. Bai, did you take Ms. Ye inside to check on anything just now? Although there was already a faint speculation, Xiao Sa still wanted to ask in person. Hear the questioning. Baya explained with some tears and laughter. Didn't I just say that? Through the diagnosis just now, I concluded that Ms. Ye was still a virgin, so I asked Ms. Lin to help me check to see if Ms. Ye's CNM was still complete. And the results, of course, were exactly in line with my diagnosis. So, Mr. Ziosa, the case has been solved. The mystery of infertility that has been going on for 5 or 6 years has been completely solved. That is, they have never officially intercoursed together since they got married. Hear this. Time seemed to stand still for several seconds. Ah, Xiao Sa's eyes widened instantly, then his neck tilted back, his face was suddenly full of disbelief, and then he looked at Lin Wanfen blankly. It was Lin Wanfen who was inspecting just now, and she had the most right to speak. After perceiving Xiao Sa's gaze, Lin Wanfen also nodded with a wry smile. It's true, and I'm also surprised. Ms. Ye is 40 years old, but the membrane inside is still intact. However, this is also the reason why she looks so young. Yuan Yang and Yuan Yin are not leaked, the spirit is guarded, and she is calm and free. I am still quite envious. Of course, they can't be said to be frigid, just cognitively impaired. However, they have to ask themselves what the specific situation is. As soon as this remark came out, Xiao Sa almost couldn't hold back. He took a sharp breath of cold air. If you read a violent novel, go to Filu Novel Network. Then he couldn't stop shaking his head and sighing, but this sigh was mixed with an uncontrollable break of defense. It's this. Doesn't that mean hundreds of experts have not been able to solve the truth of their fertility problem? They've never really had sex together. Hiss. 2. This kind of truth is announced, so how can the experts and doctors who have given them physical examinations in the past few years be embarrassed? Is this a failure of national education, or, said. Xiao Sa laughed twice and asked weakly. Dr. Lin, Dr. Bai, you are all experts in this area, I would like to ask if there is any possibility. Is it that the membrane of women will grow back after it is broken? Or is there another possibility? It's just that they actually have the same room, but they haven't broken through that membrane. Because the walls are too thick. So hundreds of millions of elite soldiers can't break through the city walls. Hearing such an out-of-tune statement, Lin Wanfen was stunned. As a foreign TV reporter, can't you ask such a naive question with your physiological common sense? In fact, of course, Xiao Sa knows that it is funny, and when he is a reporter, he needs to speak up for the audience and netizens. After all, at this moment, the netizens in the live broadcast room have exploded. Worry, Nima, what kind of earth-shattering operation is this? Is the anchor sharp-eyed? Damn, this is actually the truth. I seriously suspect that the anchor has installed surveillance in someone's house. Lie in a groove. Is there a mistake? People are doctoral students. How do you understand the same room in this way? Poof ha! Laughing to death. What kind of neural dialect is this? It's too doggy. Just say that Yan Shijun is a fine dog. The case has been solved, family. The anchor is still as stable as an old dog, and I, Nima, am going to be separated. You have been married to me for 5 or 6 years, my wife is still a virgin, and you still want a baby. Ha ha ha. Xiao Sa is too damaged. What hundreds of millions of elite soldiers can't break through the city wall? Wait, what about the brother who said he was going to eat Xiang upside down? What's? The truth is so explosive, I'm going to drink cat coffee upside down. Ha ha ha. For the first time, I found myself surpassing the scientific research boss in some aspect of cognition. At this time, those bigwigs in the scientific research circle who are paying attention to Yan Shijun and his wife, through Xiao Sa's live broadcast of the interview, saw that the scene also broke the defense. As colleagues, they thought of various home remedies for infertility treatment for Yan Shijun and his wife, and also found many experts for them. For this matter, they accompanied Yan Shijun and his wife from the age of 35 to 40. Seeing that Xie Ziokin is about to go through menopause, the two just don't have children. They jointly asked the senior management of the National Science and Technology Bureau to think of a way together, and then let the members of the Huaxia Imperial Medical Group take over. Now I never expected it. They had envisioned anything that might lead to infertility, but they never thought of it. These two cuties have been married for so many years, and they have never had a substantial physical in-depth communication. The woman's CNM is still intact. What a waste of their feelings. The other side. Huang Xiaowai looked at the live broadcast room and was also dumbfounded. Ahem. After taking a sharp sip of milk tea, Huang Xiaowai coughed non-stop, and then complained weakly. I'm Nima. Aren't these two here to entertain me? The truth about their infertility is so outrageous, no wonder I can't find the problem no matter how much I look at it. Co-author, Nima is the one they've never had. I'm so angry. Huang Xiaowai gritted her teeth, feeling that she had been tricked. Then he looked at the white knight in the live broadcast room. Damn, if you're lucky, it's a no-brainer. Hear this. Huang Yaoshi smiled happily. Xiaowai, it's not luck. Think about it, it's also a look, smell, and diagnosis. Why can this kid by ya find clues? And you can't find out? You've made sure they're healthy, but you haven't looked any further. Cut. Hearing Grandpa say this, Huang Xiaowai glanced at her and said angrily. Of course, there are differences between men and women, and my way of thinking about solving problems is different from him. Plus I'm only 16 years old, where would I have thought of such a dirt? When Huang Yaoshi heard his granddaughter say this, he was also non-committal, touched his beard, and said lightly. The dialectic of Chinese medicine is simple to say, but the premise is to gather enough information. Whether it is the 8 compendiums or the 6 classics, they are all about finding the laws of the body, which needs to be verified step by step. Their infertility is a symptom, and by this kid, you call him a strange-minded person or a broken routine. He must have thought of a depth that you can't imagine. After all, You can't tell if it's a virgin or not. You're right. Hear this. Huang Ziyi thought about it carefully and felt that it was right. Taking the pulse can judge the pregnancy, and it is true that the CNM is broken or not. And if Baiye can come to this conclusion, it is necessary to synthesize a large amount of information for screening. If you look at it this way, this kid can come to this outrageous and accurate conclusion: Li Qian is good, and it is really 2 more brushes. Otherwise, in order to save face, he could have used other complicated terms to fool him. Grandpa was right. However, this outrageous truth is estimated to be difficult to convince other members of the group. This assessment is estimated to be invalid. After all, everyone wants to see how Baiye uses traditional Chinese medicine solutions to regulate their infertility. When Huang Yaoshi heard this, he nodded, but his face was full of joy. This is better, but Baiye can be accepted as a close disciple. At the same time, this way, Yan Shijun and Xie Ziokan were also stunned. There was a hint of grievance and incomprehension on their faces. At this moment, in the face of everyone's strange eyes, it is not to go, and it is not to go. And the atmosphere of the White Night is almost there. Looking at them, he spoke again. You guys, this is a platonic marriage. How can there be joy in this way? Hear the questioning. Yan Shijun turned her head, her face twitching a little, as if she realized that she had made a mistake. That's, so what? Then. Xie Ziokan also came up and spoke. Shijun and I have always been soulmates. We often discuss academics, and we have spiritual exchanges every night. We sleep in the same bed every day, covered with the same quilt. However, she was not finished yet. Baiye interjected. Alas! Do you think that just by communicating spiritually, the cells of the body can exchange and you can get pregnant? Difficult, isn't it? Hearing this, Yan Shijun said in a straight voice. We have done scientific research, and 30% of the human body's microflora is in the body, living together with each other, and as long as it comes into contact, the flora will be exchanged. That's why we're getting more and more husband and wife. Aren't the cells of the human body the same as these microflora? As soon as this remark came out, Baiye is also dumbfounded. Their doctor is stupid. It seems that it is really necessary for them to watch the Cherry Blossom movie and learn traditional Chinese medicine, infertility, crazy social death patients. Author, Cold Shower in Winter. Chapter 65. Baiye sighed in his heart. Sure enough. The more educated people are, the more likely they are to have some mental disorders. Another is that the two grew up in a welfare home, and after entering the student days, the teachers only cared about their learning. Sex education for them is usually neglected in life. Even in order to protect them, it is estimated that they are silent about sex education. This has led to a highly educated couple like them not living a normal married life when they are 40 years old. Other than that, and because they have experienced earthquake disasters since childhood, their kidney qi has been damaged due to extreme fear. Promotes their development also slower than their peers. Therefore, the primitive impulses that should have been in adolescence are naturally cut off. When it is time to get married and have children, they will also be ashamed to know the truth and make up for themselves. And this kind of brain supplement now sounds obviously a mirage-like dream. I don't know anything about the fireworks in the world. It is conceivable how minimalist these two people's usual lives are, and how much information they implied in that aspect is blocked independently. But he is immersed in scientific research. Outsiders do not know that their knowledge in that area is so scarce. After all, that kind of instinctive thing is not to be said, let alone easy to discuss. This has led to Yan Shijun and his wife living in their own information cocoon. Fortunately, today they were placed here. Otherwise, everyone will be kept in the dark, thinking that the two of them have some century of infertility. Thinking of this, Baiye sighed leisurely, looked at Yan Shijun and his wife. Don't worry about the colony microorganisms for now. You guys, you should see a psychiatrist. If you really can't do it, just find some obscure blockbusters of cherry blossoms on the internet to watch and learn how to live a normal married life. Speaking of which, Baya was stunned again, suddenly thought of something, and asked. Wait a minute. I remember that the biology class in junior high school had a physical health class. You should know the reason why the little tadpole is looking for her mother. What's the matter? You're biased at the same time. Hear this. Yan Shijun scratched her head, feeling everyone's strange gaze, and her face turned pale for a while. Reminiscing about the past, he smiled dryly. The biology class in junior high school was dominated by our math teacher. Biology textbooks are also used as extracurricular reading. As soon as this remark came out, everyone fell silent. Xiao Sa paused for a moment and nodded. Took over the topic and said leisurely. It's a common phenomenon in our country, and it's not unusual. But, Mr. Yan, may I ask 553, how do you understand pregnancy? Said. Xiao Sa looked at Yan Shijun and his wife very seriously. Saw the two of them looking at each other for a while, and they both lowered their heads in unison. Seeing this, Xiao Sa hurriedly changed the topic and quipped. Actually, I was always curious about this when I was a child, and I asked the elders how the child was born. Guess what the grown-ups say? They say that if you get married, you can have a baby, and if I ask again, I will say that if you kiss your mouth, you can get pregnant. But I still want to get to the bottom of it, and then some of the worse elders will say that they will get pregnant after sleeping. But they never went into detail about how to sleep. Speaking of which, Xiao Sa paused, looked at Yan Shijun and his wife again, and asked. You are a group of Kochi, do you know what kind of sleeping position you need to use to get pregnant? Hearing Xiao Sa's serious question, and seeing that there was a smile in the corner of his eyes, Xiaokin was a little angry. I couldn't help but speak. Xiao Sa, if we knew what position to use to facilitate pregnancy, why would we be here now? In fact, we've tried various poses. We also learned yoga for this, and our flexibility has been developed to the extreme. For a month or 3, we also tried Taoist meditation. We've tried every movement you can think of, but we've almost tried a handstand. The voice fell. Xiao Sa was dumbfounded. And everyone was completely thundered. Listen up. Is this what a pair of scientific research bigwigs should say? When you ask you about your sleeping position, do you really think you should sleep in what position? Is that the point? Even if Xiaosa has a lot of experience as a reporter, he can't do it when he hears Xiaokin's explanation. At this time, the live broadcast room exploded. My Nima. My brother Yan, have you all lived as husband and wife since you got married? Poof haha. It's so graphic, no. I'm going to have my snot coming out when I'm laughing. Yan Shijun and his wife, their research in the field of superconductors is internationally renowned. How could they become the fish that slipped through the net in the 9-year compulsory education? Emma. Oh my God, it's so confusing. It's ridiculous and pathetic. I'm 40 years old, and I can live so pure. I don't believe it. How can 2 doctoral students not even understand this bit of common sense? If there is a script, the screenwriter's brain is definitely sick. If there is no script, it is better to believe that I am Qin Shi Huang. Don't believe it. In reality, many such people can only say that sex education is indeed too lacking, and it just so happens that they are highly educated, and it is even more difficult to talk about it in that regard, so there is prejudice and cognitive impairment. The world is so weird. I have a PhD in chemistry, but I can't cook yet. Netizens were directly thundered by Xiaokin's speech. The contrast brought by this Kochi group makes them stunned, full of absurdity and comedy. But when you think about it, it is incredible. Even if they have this prejudice, don't they have the primitive impulse to dry up the fire? After all, even if you are a doctoral student, you are still an animal. At this time, Yan Shijun looked at Xiao Sa's surprised expression, and seemed to realize that she had made a very serious mistake. He hurriedly pulled the corner of Xie Ziokin's clothes and asked her not to say any more. Words are wrong, now. He restrained his embarrassment and incomprehension, and tried to keep his face calm. It's just that my heart is still pounding. Some kind of hazy cognition seems to gradually surface in his memories. But at this time, Bai Ye looked at him and asked, Mr. Yan, your body is very healthy, you have Uncle Chen's in the morning, right? Uncle Chen, hearing the question, Yan Shijun was slightly stunned. It's a pillar of Optimus. At this time, Li Jiajia couldn't help but interject, but as soon as she finished speaking, she blushed. Ahem. Bai Ye glanced at her, and then looked at Yan Shijun. It's just that natural physiological reaction. Don't you have any evil thoughts at all? Hear this. Yan Shijun drowned her saliva, as if she was being told the main thing, and suddenly lowered her head. He is a normal man, how can he not have evil thoughts that he should have? It's just that. It's just that he has been immersed in the traditional culture of Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism for many years, and he will soon be able to subdue some obscene thoughts. And take those evil thoughts as demons. And this habit makes his beautiful women on the street always change their minds. Over time, he built a firewall in the depths of his consciousness. As long as there is the slightest evil thought, it can be detected and eradicated immediately. There is a dharma in Buddhism: when you think about it, you will break it; when you think about it, you will feel it, and you will feel nothing. He found that as long as he could override the thoughts and perceive them, those evil thoughts would naturally dissolve. He was still happy about this, but he didn't want Xie Ziokin to think that he had become bad. After all, in traditional cultural concepts, those evil thoughts are called evil and fornication, and all evil and sexual immorality are the first. Come to think of this. Yan Shijun glanced at his wife Xie Ziokin affectionately and nodded. Even when I had evil thoughts, I quickly restrained them and changed my mind. My work environment also needs me to do this, to save the truth and eliminate people's desires, and to focus more on scientific research. Hear this. Bai Ye suddenly couldn't cry or laugh. If you read a violent novel, go to Fila Novel Network. Then he turned his head and whispered to Lin Wanfan next to him. Dr. Lin, MS Ye is white. Tiger, right? Indeed, as you can deduce, cherry blossoms are stunted. Lin Wanfan felt flattered when he heard Bai Ye's question, and immediately nodded. And I also guess that the development of the woman's pituitary gland is also delayed, so there is a tendency to think about stone women. Of course, this will require further testing. Generally, the national physical examination will not be so in-depth, and it is also because of your meticulous observation that you have discovered this blind spot. Hearing this, Bai Ye nodded. Looking at Yan Shijun's expression, he couldn't help but show a trace of pity. Mr. Yan, you are a good husband, but you are not a competent husband. You obviously have desires, but you don't explore your body as deeply as you do research, and you think too much about it and ignore the major events of your life. Daoi. If you are a little reckless and impulsive, don't believe in the way of destroying people's desires. It is estimated that children will be able to play soy sauce. Of course. In order to make you husband and wife deeply realize how pedantic your cognition is, I still want to show you a blockbuster. The name is, Little Tadpole Looking for Mother. The voice fell. Everyone just thought it was ridiculous and hilarious. The good and end of the line national scientific research boss was taught how to find a mother on a tadpole. And it's so serious. Poof. Xiao Sa immediately couldn't help it, and laughed like her ha. I'm sorry, Mr. Yan, MS yeah, I am highly trained, and I usually don't say I will laugh unless I can't help it. After speaking, he immediately changed the subject, looked at Baye, and asked, Dr. Bai, on this occasion, it shouldn't be suitable for playing obscure blockbusters, right? Teacher Xiao Sa smiled. Hearing this, Baye smiled lightly. Just now I asked Mr. Lin to find a 3D video of medical science. Said. In front of Yan Shijun and his wife, he ordered it. Soon. The two of them looked at it curiously. Then the two of them showed a complex and wonderful expression at the same time. Especially Yan Shijun, after he saw the little tadpole find his mother, he hugged his mother and became a fertilized egg. Then implant the bed. Then it keeps dividing, from embryos to worms, and then to small fish. Then the fish became reptiles, and soon the reptiles became mammals, and finally baby humans. It's an amazing process, it's like going through the evolutionary history of a species. And it all started with a tadpole looking for his mother. And how do little tadpoles find their mothers? This 3D video doesn't have obvious instructions, but everything is obvious. Buzz. After watching this popular science video, Yan Shijun and his wife suddenly looked like crabs that had been roasted, their whole bodies were hot and red, and they were ashamed and just wanted to find a hole to get into. In fact, they had fantasized about similar scenarios, but they kept rejecting them with mutual incentives. He also bitterly believes that as long as the spiritual mind is strong enough, the cells can attract each other and then combine. How this kind of thinking came about is no longer examinable. At this moment, they just feel that their cognitive bias has been ridiculously wrong, and they have complicated such a simple matter for 5 or 6 years. But who can be blamed for this, all the misunderstandings and fate of the inconsistencies? Alas! Alas! Yan Shijun and his wife sighed at the same time in the naked truth. At the same time, he lowered his head, like a child who had done something wrong. After a while. Only then did he look at the white knight. Dr. Bai, thank you so much. We're ashamed. Hear this. Baye waved his hand and said with a faint smile. It's unfortunate, but it's also very, very lucky. It's too late for a lot of people to envy. You must know that many people who are sexually addicted to sex and addiction want to achieve your state the most in this life. In Buddhism, there is a classic called Tongmeng Zhiguan. You have the way of Tongmeng in terms of physiological needs, and it can be said that you have traditional culture as a guard, which will not make you sink. This is what makes those who shout about abstaining from sex every day probably not be able to practice for the rest of their lives. Moreover, you are very healthy, and there is no suspense about having a healthy baby. As soon as this remark came out, Yan Shijun and his wife looked at Baye, and suddenly felt that Baye was tall, and then thought about the contempt for Baye just now, and they were even more ashamed. Live room at this time. Woo woo. Anchor, you understand and comfort people, the old man sharpshooter is indeed envious of the separation of the quality wall. Damn. The anchor is awesome. Such an outrageous thing can actually be analyzed by the head. Yes. Who still says there is a script now? Get out, I won't beat you to death. Nima. It's so dramatic. If it weren't for the anchor's insistence on his point of view, it would be easy to be sprayed if it was verified. Let's think carefully about the anchor's diagnosis from beginning to end. It is a standard process of looking, hearing, and diagnosing, and there is no nonsense in people. Ha ha ha. But the anchor is too bad, and the public has let the scientific research boss learn from the tadpole to find his mother. At this time, seeing Yan Shijun and his wife bowing their heads and admitting their mistakes, Li Jiajia was also emotional. All her previous worries were gone. In my heart, I admired Baye's medical skills even more. It's dramatic, but it's a perfect solution. Heck, I can't get excited anymore. The boss can be the boss, and what the boss says, there must be a reason for him. It's so handsome. How do you look at it? The boss has a heroic posture of winning the head of the general in thousands of troops. It's a no-brainer, tisk, so handsome. Li Jiajia thought so in her heart. Her eyes that looked at Bai Ye were about to turn into a heart shape, and then her face turned pale. By the way, just now Mr. Lin said that Sister Xie is under a lot of psychological pressure, and she is a little bit of a sign of liver depression and spleen deficiency. It would be better if the boss could prescribe some medicine for them. In that case, those sunspots who blow the black of Chinese medicine will have nothing to say at all. Otherwise, let Brother Yan and them leave like this. It doesn't seem to show much expertise in traditional Chinese medicine. It's just that the boss will ignore this problem. After all, compared to infertility, this is a small problem. At this time, Lin Wanfen noticed Li Jiajia's gaze and realized this. Also ready to remind me. But just as she wanted to speak, she paused again. Thinking that Bai Ye is so young, it is already remarkable to be proficient in acupuncture and Chinese medicine massage, and it seems unlikely that he will be proficient in prescriptions and prescriptions. After all, prescriptions are not simple science. Rashly reminded that if people really don't understand, they will fold their faces. This is equivalent to accidentally offending someone. Come to think of this, Lin Wanfen planned to give up. After all, it was just a small problem, and it would not affect pregnancy and childbirth. And this side. After Bai Ye finished speaking, he was about to ask Yan Shijun and his wife to scan the code to pay the diagnosis fee. That's when it happened. The host chooses the second way of declaring. Detected that the host is in front of the public, informing the patient of the truth that he should lie down if he wants to give birth. Congratulations to the host for receiving the reward, God-level prescription master status. Hosts can accept rewards at any time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Traditional Chinese medicine, infertility, crazy social death patients. Author, Cold Shower in Winter. Chapter 66. Hearing this cold electronic voice, Bai Ye's heart was overjoyed. He used to know acupuncture and massage, as well as looking, hearing, and palpating. However, if we really want to be able to correct and drive away evil spirits, eliminate the causes, and correct the disordered viscera qi and the phenomenon of yin and yang qi and blood flourishing and declining, we must rely on the treatment of traditional Chinese medicine to stabilize. After all, the effect of acupuncture and massage comes faster than traditional Chinese medicine, but it also goes fast. Traditional Chinese medicine believes that the occurrence and development of any disease is the result of pathogenic factors acting on the human body, causing the struggle between good and evil, resulting in the prosperity and decline of yin and yang, qi and blood, or the dysfunction of the organs and meridians. Of course, the way of prescription is not only to prescribe medicine to the patient, but also to prescribe the medicine. It is important to know that the reason why traditional Chinese medicine can cure diseases is related to the performance of the drug itself. As the saying goes, the use of medicine, or the breath of the medicine, or the time of its birth, or the place where it is born, each according to its preference, is the cure of the disease. Therefore, it can make up for the deviations and remedy the shortcomings, reconcile the viscera, and seek its reasoning deeply, and you can get it. Arguably, a doctor who is proficient in prescriptions can be regarded as truly entering the field of Chinese medicine. Accept it now. Bai Ye's heart moved. This reward came at the right time. After all, he has been paid attention to by old Chinese medicine practitioners from all walks of life, and if he doesn't know how to show his feet, it will definitely be criticized. Now, as the thoughts of the White Knight fell, immediately, a void beam of light that only he could see quickly condensed above his head. The beam of light carried billions of gigabytes of information, and after a while, it disappeared into Bai Ye's brain. Buzzing. Bai Ye's heart was shocked, and he suddenly felt that countless knowledge of Chinese medicine prescriptions was generated in his mind, and it was quickly formed into a database connected by yin and yang. And after a while, there is a burst of clarity in the brain. The moment Bai Ye opened his eyes, he felt that the way he looked at things in front of him had changed. He glanced at a small gecko at the foot of the wall in the doorway. Then some prescription knowledge points quickly flashed in my mind. Gecko can be used as medicine when dried. The medicinal properties are bitter and sweet, warm and cold, poisonous, and can treat symptoms such as weak pulse and blood stasis, and a certain dose can also treat liver cancer. Retracting his gaze, Bai Ye looked closer again, and found that the hair, nails, and sawdust in his line of sight could make his first reaction mobilize the database of prescriptions in his brain. It's a great feeling. It turns out that the perspective of the master of prescription is like this. Come to think of this. A smile tugged at the corner of Bai Ye's mouth. He knew that with this system reward, his ability had surpassed that of the domestic medicine masters. Because the masters in China are only proficient in the medicinal properties of more than 1,000 kinds of drugs in famous works such as the Compendium of Materia Medica. But he can understand the 4 breaths and flavors of nature in the world. For example, some plants and animals are endemic to certain countries, and you can know their medicinal properties by looking at them at a glance at the night. It's that awesome. Even if he is placed in Africa or the North and South Poles, White Knight can become a local apothecary master according to the local natural products. At this time, Yan Shijun and his wife listened carefully to Bai Ye's words and bowed deeply. They really don't have the shame to stay any longer. Many colleagues in the research institute are still watching, and relatives and friends are probably going to laugh at them to death. Now I just want to withdraw quickly. So he hurriedly spoke. Thank you, Dr. Bai, how much does the consultation cost? Shall we scan the QR code to pay? Hearing their question, Bai Ye suddenly came back to his senses. Immediately thought that he also had the assessment indicators of the Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group. Yan Shijun and his wife are definitely healthy now, but it is also based on the solid foundation of kidney qi. In fact, Xie Ziokin's body still has some flaws as a mother. If these flaws are made up, she may be happy in less than half a month. Come to think of this. White Knight looked at them and said yes. Wait a minute. I also need to prescribe a pair of Chinese medicine for MS Xie. Prescribe medicine. Xie Ziokin was stunned when she heard this, and asked puzzled. But didn't Dr. Bai say that my body is very healthy? Health is health, but don't you want eugenics? Looking at Xie Ziokin's puzzled gaze, Bai Ye smiled faintly. Don't worry, I'm prescribing you a simple little prescription. When I first checked your pulse, I found that your viscera qi and blood are easily affected by emotions. In particular, the liver and spleen are obviously caused by excessive mental stress. It's understandable that you subconsciously think that you're in advanced maternal age and that you're afraid that conception is at risk. And the best treatment room of Chinese medicine treats the disease. Therefore, I prescribe this medicine to you to prevent you from liver depression and spleen deficiency. After all, there is already a faint sign of this, but the signs have not yet fully appeared. Do you know what I mean? Hearing Bai Ye say this, Xie Ziokin suddenly felt a sudden feeling, and then she had an indescribable admiration and gratitude for Bai Ye. She didn't expect that she and Bai Ye were just meeting in Pingshui, but Bai Ye knew her so well. Every word Bai Ye said just now had a healing and comforting effect on her. After all, she is 40 years old, no matter how optimistic she is, no matter how much she smiles in front of her lover, and no matter how much she loves fitness, she can't hide her thoughts and sadness. Because of this, her appetite has become lighter and less, and she said that it is good to not eat after noon to strengthen her spleen and stomach, but in fact, her stomach is easy to distend after eating too much. And she wondered why this was happening. Now when I hear Bai Ye's statement, liver depression and spleen deficiency turn out to be liver depression that causes spleen deficiency. The truth that the 5 elements of the viscera are mutually reinforcing immediately came to her mind, and she instantly understood many things. It's all thinking too much. Alas, there is no way to restrain it. As long as you don't succeed in conceiving a baby, you will think about it. After all, men can still give birth at the age of 60, but women are at great risk when they are 40. Therefore, it is really timely to prescribe medicine to prevent liver depression and spleen deficiency. Thank you, Dr. Bai. Xiaoziokin's tone suddenly became extremely respectful, even a little like a little fangirl. The voice fell. Bai immediately looked at Li Jiajia. Jiajia, you should be able to grab medicine, right? I'm sure of it. Isn't it just dispensing according to the prescription? Li Jiajia immediately replied when she heard Bai's question. At the same time, I can't help but be curious. The boss is already so good, will he still prescribe medicine? If you know acupuncture, massage, and prescriptions, you can simply be an all-rounder in Chinese medicine. I thought the boss would be negligent, but I didn't expect people to think about it a long time ago. I'm really worried. However, when it comes to treating liver depression and spleen deficiency, there are a lot of prescriptions for treating liver depression and spleen deficiency. What kind of prescription will the boss prescribe? This needs to be dialectically addressed. Now Sister Xia only has signs of liver depression and spleen deficiency, and she has not yet shown specific symptoms. I have also studied prescriptions, but this kind of medicine is not enough to have theory, it requires a lot of clinical experience. This way. When Lin Wanfan heard Bai say this, he was also curious about Bai like Li Jiajia. Live room at this time. Damn. The anchor will still prescribe medicine. Awesome class, isn't it the old Chinese medicine doctor who prescribes medicine? Yes, the anchor is so young, even if he starts to learn prescriptions from his mother's womb, he can't learn more than 1,000 medicinal materials in this Chinese medicine, right? What do you want? Prescribe medicine for the symptoms. As long as you look it up on the internet, there will be a lot of prescriptions. What's all the fuss? The anchor doesn't have to make his own prescription. Ha ha ha, laughing to death. The upstairs is simple, the prescription is a lot, but to do dialectical medication, there are university questions, how to proportion, how much dosage, how to control the effect of medicine on the body, etc., but the control of various factors is not mentioned. There are many principles for prescribing medicine. You all want to be simple, just the anchor can say that prescribing medicine, it means that it is very awesome. The other side. Huang Yaoshi looked at Bai in the live broadcast room and said that he wanted to prescribe medicine to Xiaoziokin, but he wanted to leave, but he was stunned and turned back. Interesting, this kid can also prescribe medicine. It's getting more and more interesting. The old man will see what medicine he will prescribe. Huang Xiaowai nodded. Through the medicine he prescribes, you can understand his prescription skills. Grandpa, if you want to accept him as a close disciple, then you have to think twice. If he is old-fashioned, he can only prescribe the kind of prescriptions on the market, and he doesn't understand dialectics at all, and you will have to work hard in the future. This one is. Hearing his granddaughter say this, Huang Yaoshi touched his beard and nodded. This white knight doesn't look like a child of a famous Chinese medicine master, and most of the ancestral Chinese medicine literacy comes from the folk. In terms of prescriptions, it is almost equivalent to the top Chinese medicine students from colleges and universities, but those who want to open their own shops and prescribe medicines. After graduation, you must have at least 3 years of regular training, clinical experience, and at least 3,000 cases. Otherwise, in his eyes, he will not be qualified, and it is impossible to understand dialectic. If you read a violent novel, go to Phila Novel Network. There are no shortcuts to this path. But in this way, no matter how you say it, you have to be 30 years old. but Baya looked like he was only in his early 20s. It's a bit confusing. Come to think of this. A hint of hesitation flashed across Huang Yaoxi's face. If Baya is blank in the prescription, it is fine, and if he is accepted as a close disciple and fully accepts his teachings, then he will soon embark on the right path. But if White Knight already has the foundation of the inheritance of miscellaneous cards, he will have to consider it. After all, it's hard to change habits. Unless Baya's thinking and talent in prescriptions can satisfy him. But this seems stuck in age and experience, not very realistic. Unless he comes from a royal doctor family like them like Xiaowai. But Baya, this kid is obviously not this way. Of course, Baya didn't know that Huang Yaoxi had the idea of accepting apprentices from him. When he heard Li Jiajia's words, he immediately gave instructions and spoke. Buplurum chinensis, peony, citrus aurantium, licorice, 6 grams each. Just boil water for Ms yet to drink. The voice fell. Li Jiajia was stunned for a moment, and then nodded. She felt that this prescription made sense, but she couldn't remember why it was so good for a while. After all, in the field of traditional Chinese medicine, many diseases are formulated with these 4 herbs, and the different dosages of these 4 herbs can solve many different problems. When Lin Wanfan on the side heard this, his eyes lit up, and he praised it in his heart. This recipe commonly used by Chinese medicine practitioners is called Sci-fi San, which comes from Zhang Zongjing's treatise on typhoid fever. It is indeed symptomatic Xieziaokan, completely corresponding, the dosage is in line with the principle of medication, and the treatment of the disease is just right. 0 begging for flowers. Baya said, looked at Xieziaokan again, and made a gesture. Together, these 4 herbs can help you loosen your liver and regulate qi, strengthen your spleen and invigorate qi. In addition, you also massage the Zhangman acupointment more. It is located at the lower edge of the ribs, and it is often rubbed and pressed to relieve the liver and spleen, regulate qi and disperse knots, and clear dampness and heat. Seeing this, Xieziaokan hurriedly thanked her. And follow the movements of the White Knight, learn to knead the Zhangman acupointment. At this moment, she inexplicably felt that Baya was warmer than her husband. The other side. After Huang Yaoxi heard the prescription prescribed by Baya, he paused slightly, and said without sadness or joy on his face. Well, it's decent, the 4 reverses in Zhang Zongjing's treatise on typhoid fever. The dosage is also okay, and it is reasonable to add chuanxiang, xiangfu, and tangerine peel without taking into account. Baya, this kid, tisk, this piece of prescription, didn't disappoint me or surprise me. It's better to observe and observe. By the way, Xiaowai, what do you say in the group about the situation of Baya? Do you want to continue the assessment? Hearing his grandfather's question, Huang Xiaowai looked at the Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group, and then sneered. No one pays attention to the live broadcast room of White Knight yet. I'll talk to you later. I guess it's going to be invalid, said. Huang Xiaowai suddenly thought of something, glanced at his grandfather, and spoke. By the way, Grandpa, do you know that Elder Qin is doing medical assistance in North Africa? He is now also treating a bizarre form of infertility and stroke in the region. Give me some information, and ask me if I have any relevant prescription protocols, saying what kind of insect medicine has been recorded in ancient books. You can help me take a look. When Huang Yaoxi heard this, Old Qin was one of the seniors he respected, and of course he had to do his best to help with this kind of thing. Then picked up Huang Xiaowai's mobile phone and looked at it. Then he frowned. Although the photo information given by Qin Lao is very complete, the prescription must be rigorous. Xiaowai, the prescriptions you gave are biased, you don't take into account the local climate and geographical characteristics. I know. When Huang Xiaowai heard this, she pursed her lips, so I can only provide a plan and let Qin Lao go to clinical trials. Take care of this first, Grandpa. Do you have any impression of the insect medicine record that Qin Lao said? According to Qin Lao's meaning, it should be said that there is a recipe for fighting poison with poison. Alas, Huang Yaoshi sighed, I said that I should be rigorous. There are so many prescriptions for insect medicine, and even the symptoms are not clear, and I haven't been to the field investigation. How can I treat the symptoms and medicines? That's nonsense. Besides, I think that even if there are similar symptoms recorded in ancient books, it is not the same as the situation in North Africa. The regional differences are too great, and there must be differences in medication, and there will be a big error in this. Hearing this, Huang Xiaowai nodded. Yes, this is a special case, but Elder Qin must know it. It's just nowhere to go, so let's test it out like this, or maybe we want to get inspired, who knows. At this time, Bai Ye finished prescribing the medicine. He didn't know that his live broadcast room had exceeded 3 million in popularity because of the celebrity effect of Xiaosa and Yan Shijun. This popularity has already approached the number of online followers of some celebrities. And the process of his face-to-face consultation for Yan Shijun was also edited by some self-seeking bodies and posted on the internet. Instantly appeared on the hot search. This ushered in another wave of explosion in his popularity. So naturally, the live broadcast room of White Knight has attracted the attention of some celebrities. Zhang Meng was one of them, and she was quickly attracted by Bai Ye's temperament. Coincidentally, she also plays live streaming. Even more coincidentally, she has also been trying to get pregnant recently, and she has been trying to get pregnant for 2 years, but she has never been pregnant. So as soon as I saw the White Knight, I had an inexplicable sense of intimacy. Bai's Chinese medicine pavilion happens to be in the demon capital. Family, can you and I consider coming to this Chinese medicine hall to have a look? It's been 2 years and I haven't been able to conceive a baby. It's really devastating. It's even more devastating than if I failed plastic surgery. Zhang Meng takes time to analyze her life in the live broadcast room every day. After all, she is now an outdated star, and earning fans through live broadcasts is the only way she can think of a more decent way to maintain the status quo. Speaking of which, the turning point in her career came from plastic surgery, because it collapsed. Before the whole thing, she was a young girl and played many famous roles under the planning of her boss. It's a pity that I became obsessed with plastic surgery and was given up by Boss Yu. Also quarreled with Boss Yu. This is the thing she regrets the most in her life. Of course, it's useless to regret it now, and she also said that she can't change the habit of loving plastic surgery. But she didn't know that the reason why she was infertile was really closely related to various forms of plastic surgery. This White Knight is so young. I don't know how his medical skills are. Let's search the internet first and see what cases there are. Immediately, Zhang Meng began to carefully understand Bai Ye's achievements. The more he looked behind, the more Zhang Meng couldn't stop it, and his smiling face was crooked. Poof ha! It's so funny, isn't it? Is this a Chinese medicine hall? How do you feel like watching a sketch? It's a bit outrageous. My family is 1,000. Traditional Chinese medicine, infertility, crazy social death patients. Author, Cold Shower in Winter. Chapter 67. Zhang Meng laughed so much that he called Bai Ye's live broadcast room too funny. A pair of scientific research bigwigs went to see Infertility. They were married for 5 or 6 years and did not conceive a child. Countless experts tried their best to be helpless, but when they went to the anchor to check, they found that the woman's CNM was still intact. An equally normal couple, the man is from a righteous military background, and the woman is also a teacher, and both of them are very healthy. As a result, the reason for their infertility was actually the man's own saliva that drowned his hundreds of millions of elite soldiers. It's obviously looking at infertility, but it's like watching the strange display of the diversity of human species. Zhang Meng felt that he was about to laugh in tears. She wanted to keep reading, but unexpectedly found that there was no more content. Find out again. I found out that White Knight was only online for 2 days. It's only been 2 days since it was launched, and this TCM anchor hasn't interacted with netizens much, and his fans are far more popular than me. This amateur is too fierce, isn't it? Due to his professional sensitivity, Zhang Meng found that Bai Ye's popularity was rising like a rocket, and he was speechless and choked. Although she is a popular star, she is also a girl who has worked hard for nearly 10 years. There have not been many classic works in the past 10 years, but they have participated in important roles such as Wang Yuyan and Wu Meiniang, and they were also rated as popular flowers back then. Even though the makeup on her face after plastic surgery is a little unnatural now, her acting skills are still online, and she can still attract fans by starring in some small dramas. But who would have thought? Is also doing live broadcasts, but he actually lost to a Chinese medicine anchor who has only been online for 2 days to watch Infertility. Zhang Meng didn't understand a little, so he attributed the reason to the popularity of the live broadcast program of the champion. But she immediately denied it again. Because after entering the official page, Zhang Meng immediately found that some of the anchors who also appeared on the homepage of the show were still star anchors, but their popularity was far inferior to Bai Ye. 2, 3, 3, it seems that this anchor really has 2 brushes. It also proves that the problem of infertility is very serious. Zhang Meng suddenly thought about it. She is not popular now, but she can go to Bai Ye to see the infertility problem. By the way, I borrowed the popularity of the White Knight to increase my fans. Don't worry about whether it's pink, red pink, and black pink, anyway, attract it first. As a star actor, he is not afraid of being hacked, but he is afraid that his poor exposure will be forgotten. However, I have seen many old Chinese medicine practitioners, and the diagnosis is kidney and spleen weakness. That is, it is mainly necessary to prescribe traditional Chinese medicine to regulate the body. This White Knight is so young, will he be able to prescribe a prescription? I heard that prescribing medicine also needs to be prescribed dialectically, one person and one party, and different prescriptions should be prescribed at different times according to the patient's condition. Generally, it's not an old Chinese medicine doctor, I'm afraid it's unstable. At this time, Zhang Meng looked like Bai Ye, who was 10 years younger than him, and suddenly hesitated again. It wasn't until she saw Bai Ye prescribing medicine to Xie Ziokan that her eyes suddenly lit up. It seems that I underestimated him, and he may be a genius from a family of Chinese medicine. I have eaten so many Chinese medicines myself, and I have a clear understanding of the medicinal properties of medicinal materials. If he prescribes a prescription for me, I can also be alert. No matter how bad it is, if I don't feel at ease, I can still take the prescription he prescribed for me to other old Chinese medicine doctors. In short, I shouldn't be deceived at a loss. Maybe I can use the popularity of his live broadcast room to increase fans. Come to think of this. The corners of Zhang Meng's mouth hooked up a sweet smile. Looking at the White Knight in the live broadcast room, the more I watched, the more I liked it. It seems that he is not looking at a Chinese medicine talent, but at the ladder of life progress. To be a star, you must know how to borrow strength. As for whether infertility will be embarrassing and social death, that does not exist. In the entertainment industry, there are not a few families with infertility and even dink, and there are all kinds of ghosts, gods, and snakes in this industry, and they really can't do it if their psychological quality is not strong. What she didn't know, though. Since White Knight is now popular, many directors and producers in the entertainment industry have also paid attention to it. Many of them are very sensitive to the practice of plastic surgery for actors. If they know that Zhang Meng has become addicted to plastic surgery, and even not only the top but also the bottom, and has reached the level of perversion, then they must have a great opinion of her. Of course, Zhang Meng also knows this, so she said to the outside world that she regretted plastic surgery, and she lied that she had only undergone a slight plastic surgery once. Well, it's not early today, dress up tomorrow, and then go to meet this white knight. He, I'm so smart. You have to take advantage of the fragrant bait of the white knight before other colleagues find it. Zhang Meng muttered to herself, in fact, when she made this decision. Many small stars in the entertainment industry, or internet celebrities, have also aimed at the live broadcast room of White Knight. Some of them are not even married at all, but Chinese medicine has not cured their diseases. They thought that with the purpose of preventing infertility, it was always okay to take advantage of the heat in the live broadcast room of the White Knight. Anyway, Bai Ye's medical skills are so good, he will never refuse to find him to regulate his body, and then make up a boyfriend or girlfriend or something, talk about the hardships of preparing for pregnancy or something, and finally guide a wave of advertising, so that you can attract fans. As for what they made up, they thought that it was impossible for Bai Ye to know. Anyway, it was nonsense. In these days, if you want to attract traffic, you really have to borrow power. As for how to attract traffic, in their opinion, it doesn't matter as long as it doesn't break the law. In the era when traffic is king, it is easy to monetize when there are fans and traffic. And so, for a while, more and more wonderful people from all walks of life are ready to go to the Chinese medicine hall in the White Knight. Of course, White Knight was completely unaware of this. At this time, after Bai Ye prescribed medicine to Yan Shijun and his wife, he asked them to settle the payment. The total cost is 60 yuan, just scan the code directly. As soon as this remark came out, Yan Shijun and his wife were stunned. Only 60 yuan? It's only 60 yuan. 60 yuan solves the confusion that has plagued them all their lives. Hearing this, the two of them immediately cried and laughed, and were a little speechless for a while. Li Jiajia was also moved. The boss is here again, and he charges according to the cost, and he won't set the price at all. How can he make money? However, as long as the boss is happy, she can't control it anyway. Don't doubt it, it's 60 yuan. Bai Ye looked at the puzzled eyes of Yan Shijun and his wife, and said frankly, traditional Chinese medicine is like this. Medicine is a good medicine, but it may not be a good commodity. It is common knowledge in the Chinese medicine community that the efficacy of Chinese medicine is not slower than that of Western medicine, but it is much cheaper than Western medicine. Scan the code. Hear this. Yan Shijun took a deep breath, then nodded, and after scanning the code to pay, she sighed with emotion. Dr. Bai, you are a wonderful doctor, a great doctor, and you are our nobleman. The healer is benevolent. Bai Ye smiled. I wish the two noble sons an early birth. If nothing else, there will be one within this month. Hear this. Yan Shijun and Xie Ziokin glanced at each other, and then looked at Bai Ye. Thank you, Dr. Bai, for your kind words. Well, walk slowly. Bai Ye nodded. Watched the two leave. At this time, Xiao Sa was also quite emotional. The whole process is absurd and dramatic, but it is whipped into it under the diagnosis of Bai Ye. If you change to other famous Western doctors, I am afraid that Yan Shijun and his wife will inevitably be tortured. Because Western medicine is like this many times, there are no various examinations, so I think that the examination is not detailed enough, and it is very troublesome and helpless to have a DNA test or something, not to mention that there are a lot of misdiagnoses, delays and misdiagnoses. Judging from the situation of Yan Shijun and his wife, it is obvious that their physical condition is missed. Otherwise, how can the simplest CNM film not be broken? Isn't it just that Western medicine carelessly neglected Jingzhou and was led by the nose by the patient? This is a big drawback of Western medicine. As a media person, Xiao Sa has a natural sensitivity to this kind of thing, and thinks that he can use today's materials to promote Chinese medicine. And Fortunately, they met Dr. Bai. If you meet other old Chinese medicine doctors, it is estimated that you will not think of that part with Dr. Bai's out-of-the-box thinking. Xiao Sa also understood it just now, and he couldn't analyze whether it was a virgin or not. If you read a violent novel, go to Fila Novel Network. However, he thought of the content of Bai Ye's previous chat with Yan Shijun and his wife, and immediately comprehended Bai Ye's verification process. I can't help but admire Bai Ye. Sure enough, people can't look good. Originally, the subject of his interview was Yan Shijun and his wife, but after watching the whole process, Xiao Sa suddenly found that he wanted to interview Bai Ye even more. The existence of Bai Ye broke his inherent impression of Chinese medicine and made him realize the seriousness of infertility. Then, Xiao Sa suddenly thought of something, and asked Bai Ye a very mentally retarded question. Dr. Bai, from a rigorous point of view, can your TCM medical skills treat foreigners symptomatically? Hearing Xiao Sa's words, Bai Ye came back to his senses and replied with some tears and laughter. Of course you can, aren't our ancestors' acupuncture and massage also very popular abroad? As for the right symptom you said, that is a dialectical way of thinking, and Chinese medicine is like that. Said. Bai Ye glanced at the barrage in the live broadcast room, and happened to see that some comments were misguided, so he reminded. In the emphasis of traditional Chinese medicine, dialectical treatment is generally one person. You must not take your symptoms against the prescriptions prescribed on the internet to buy medicine and take it yourself. It is best to find a Chinese medicine doctor. Because symptoms are appearances, a lot of different internal causes can lead to the same appearance. For example, insomnia, sleepiness, and forgetfulness, then it may be a deficiency of kidney essence, or a deficiency of kidney yang, or a deficiency of liver fire and spleen, or a deficiency of lung heat and stasis, etc. If you buy medicine casually, it's easy to make a mistake and make the condition worse. The voice fell. Xiao Sa nodded, thoughtful. I've been taught, and I've heard that a simple cough can be caused by a very complex internal cause. Yes. Hearing this, Bai Ye nodded. If you divide it simply, cough is also divided into cold cough and hot cough, and the symptoms will be slightly different, but ordinary people can't see it. As soon as this remark came out. Live room. I'll just say, it's so easy to prescribe medicine. The anchor is awesome. Worry. I feel like my knees are about to kneel. I seem to have made the mistake that the anchor said, no wonder how to buy medicine for a cold is not good. Ha ha ha. Brother who just said that the right thing to check medicine on the internet is rough, see if I don't you. The anchor doctor is benevolent, and the strange knowledge of Chinese medicine has been learned again. 0. The anchor is really an all-rounder, just looking at infertility is really condescending. At this time, Xiao Sa savored Bai Ye's words, and then said a little shyly. Dr. Bai, my wife is from the Maple Leaf Country, and we have always wanted to have 3 children. However, my wife still needs to take care of her body, and I want to ask you if she has any problems. No problem. Hearing this, Bai Ye nodded. That's a lot of thanks. Hearing Bai Ye say this, Xiao Sa smiled. I heard from my wife that there are many infertility phenomena in her Maple Leaf Country, but their medical system is different from ours, and it is difficult to get access to Chinese medicine. I would like to find an opportunity to introduce Dr. Bai to more foreign friends to feel the charm of Chinese medicine. As soon as these words came out, Bai Ye was stunned for a moment, then smiled. It's easy to say, and it's also an honor for the shop to be able to promote the culture of Chinese medicine. When Xiao Sa heard this, he thanked him again, and then left with the film crew. Seeing Xiao Sa leave, Lin Wanfan looked at Bai Ye with a little deep meaning, and said with a smile. Master Bai, if there is nothing else, I will also go back to the clinic. Dr. Lin can just call me Dr. Bai. Hearing this, Bai Ye nodded and said. Thank you so much for your help this time, otherwise I would have been embarrassed. It's my pleasure. Hearing Bai Ye say this, Lin Wanfen was very satisfied. Helping each other and teaching each other, she still wished that Bai Ye could find her more. Then, something suddenly occurred to her. Then he spoke. By the way, Dr. Bai, my mentor, Mr. Ni Guanghai, wants to visit you. But I don't know when it's convenient for you. Hear this. Bai Ye was stunned. The name Ni Guanghai, he has understood it in the past 2 days. It can be described as the Taishan Baidu of today's Chinese medicine academia. Such a bigwig would actually want to visit him. It's really intriguing. After thinking about it, he spoke. As long as Master Ni doesn't dislike my ugliness, I'm always welcome. Dr. Bai, this is not a burro, this is an immortal. Hearing Bai Ye being so humble, Lin Wanfen couldn't help but quip. Bai Ye smiled, non-committal, and then watched Lin Wanfen leave. So far. And that's the end of it? Saw that Li Jiajia was still bowing her head and holding a pen to make some records. Jiajia, what are you reckoning? Oh, I'm looking at the boss's prescription. Li Jiajia heard this and came back to her senses. The boss said that the prescription given to Sister Xie just now can treat the disease and prevent the imbalance of the 5 organs in the future. I'm curious, what kind of disease is this disease, and why this simple recipe can achieve the effect you said? Li Jiajia couldn't help but look at Bai Ye curiously, and couldn't understand why the boss knew so much at such a young age. Maybe I just happened to have a prescription for the symptoms. The prescription medicine is so complicated, the boss should not be proficient in 4.4. Hearing Li Jiajia ask, Bai Ye smiled faintly, and just pointed to the live broadcast room, explaining. MS's pathogenesis just now lies in the damage of emotions and stress to the liver, which is wood. The liver turns into fire, that is, the liver stagnation turns into fire, and if the fire goes up, the symptoms will be insomnia, and she will not have this for the time being, because the kidney essence is sufficient. Muketu, the spleen belongs to the soil, which will cause the spleen and stomach to be bad and not want to eat, which is a mild symptom of MS yet. If you don't get emotionally connected and don't adjust in time, the following possible problems will occur. If the liver fire is too big and the lungs are damaged, she will cough, or the cough caused by the liver, and the treatment will require diarrhea of the lungs and liver. If the liver fire is too strong and the spleen is deficient, it will also hurt the liver blood, and the symptoms of liver blood deficiency will also be obvious, palpitations and upset. The lack of liver blood will also affect the kidney essence, resulting in liver and kidney yin deficiency, and when it comes to the lower coke, the symptoms are soreness in the waist and knees, memory loss, and so on. Of course, none of these are there, because her kidney essence is sufficient, so the recipe is simple and 4 flavors. If it's too late, it will become poisonous. After listening to Bai Ye's explanation, Li Jiajia suddenly realized, and then the admiration was like a surging river. It turns out that the boss is so proficient in other medicines, it seems simple but not simple. Whip into the inside, straight to the point. This is how many old Chinese medicine doctors can accurately grasp it after more than 10 years. I thought that the boss had written down the prescription for the symptoms, but in fact, people have a holistic observation of Sister Xie's pathogenesis. That's amazing. At this time, Huang Yaoshi looked at Bai Ye's explanation in the live broadcast room, and was also stunned. Then his eyes lit up. Good boy, but the old man underestimates you. Xia Why? With this alone, Bai Ye's assessment can also be passed. Huang Xiaowai pouted when he heard this. That's hard to say, I'll communicate with the group. Traditional Chinese medicine, infertility, crazy social death patients. Author, Cold Shower in Winter. Chapter 68. Huang Xiaowai said, then picked up the phone and opened it. Then I inadvertently saw the push message popping up. Glancing lightly, he was stunned. Good guy, this guy in the white knight is on the hot search. It is said that it has solved the problem of infertility of scientific research bosses. It's really cheap, with the popularity of Yan Shijun and his wife, and Xiao Sa's assist. Huang Xiaowai pursed her lips and was suddenly speechless. Who would have thought? I thought it would be an assessment that spanned 3 months, but I didn't think about it for half a day to find the cause. This is also a very explosive medical case in the entire Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group. But if you want to be convinced, that's not almost. Because Yan Shijun's situation is too different from the assessment expectations in the group, who would have expected that everything would be caused by the misdiagnosis of Western medicine. However, having said that, Huang Xiaowai was also moved in her heart. If it were her or her grandfather, I wouldn't have been able to find this detail. After all, the examination of infertility is to use the elimination method, and a large number of experts and bigwigs in front of them have ruled out the problem of the boulevard, so they will naturally ignore this crucial point. Therefore, if you go to other doctors, it is likely that you will misdiagnose it. Fortunately, meeting Baiye can be regarded as a fortunate thing for Yan Shijun and his wife. After breaking through that matter, she believed that Yan Shijun's husband and wife's pregnancy was a matter of minutes, and there was no suspense at all. Come to think of this, Huang Xiaowai felt a lot calmer. She has no contradiction with Baiye, and hopes that there will be more young people in the group like Baiye. After all, Baiye's appearance is very high, his talent is not bad, and after joining the group, he can be regarded as the face of the Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group. Thinking of this, Huang Xiaowai smiled in her heart, and looked forward to meeting Baiye as soon as possible. At the same time, she thought of one more thing. 3 months later, everyone will attend the Sino-Foreign TCM exchange conference as assigned by the state. I remember that 2 years ago, overseas Chinese medicine practitioners from several countries laughed at it. Regarding this face issue, the other members don't care, but Huang Xiaowai has always remembered it. Said that the Chinese medicine in the Dragon Country was not accepted, and it was ironic that the famous and powerful Chinese medicine doctors in the Dragon Country were all old men. And if there is Baiye's joining, and if you can pass the review and participate, you will definitely be able to give everyone a long face at the International TCM Exchange Conference. But that's all there is to it. We are still 30 years old in terms of medical skills and those overseas Chinese medicine families. After all, the war years cost the country a large number of precious medical classics, which were stolen or destroyed, or bought at high prices. Coupled with the suppression of traditional Chinese medicine by external capital in the past 2 or 3 decades, it has led to the outflow of a large number of traditional Chinese medicine talents. In this way, we still need to work hard to raise our eyebrows internationally, and this task can only be carried over by our young people. So, the appearance of this white knight is really intriguing. Did you say yes, Grandpa? Huang Yaoshi was about to leave when he suddenly heard his granddaughter's emotion. Was stunned, and then moved. It is indeed a pity that due to historical reasons, a large number of ancient prescriptions have been lost overseas, which is force majeure. Maybe the insect medicine prescription that Qin Lao said was also lost overseas. Xiaowai, the doctor is benevolent, don't have the heart of comparison, bow your head when you should bow your head. This international exchange conference of traditional Chinese medicine, you still earnestly seek those scriptures and classics that have been lost overseas. The way of prescriptions, there is no end to learning. What every generation of our imperial physician family has to do is to check and fill in the gaps. Live to learn from all the time. Listening to her grandfather's nagging, Huang Xiaowai couldn't help but mutter. Got it? People let you comment on the white knight, and you always talk about those big righteousness. It's not annoying. Looking at his granddaughter's resentful little eyes, Huang Yaoshi said with a smile. You said that Baiye, this kid, Grandpa likes it very much. Regardless of whether Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group accepts it or not, I will personally test him. Give him another olive branch. I believe that with the qualifications of this kid Baya, it shouldn't be a big problem to become a master of prescriptions before the age of 40. When the time comes, Grandpa, if I am not yet old and I am still smart and bright, I may be lucky enough to see Baya's way of medicine shine on the international stage. Haha, that's great. However, there is no hurry, I have to observe this kid more before I go to him. Hearing Grandpa say this, Huang Xiaohuai's beautiful eyes blinked. I can't help but think that my grandfather will accept Baya as a close disciple, and I will often see the handsome and elegant Baya in the future, which is also very beautiful to think about. After all, if she could, of course she wanted to be with handsome guys every day. However, she doesn't have much hope for her grandfather's fantasies. Their backwardness in the field of traditional Chinese medicine is not a matter of recent years, but a regret of the past 100 years. This can be seen by looking at the comparison of the development of traditional Chinese medicine in Bay Island. Driven by some unknown capital forces in China, traditional Chinese medicine is almost perishing. How sad. Although the state has begun to pay attention to it in recent years, it is so difficult to cultivate a master of prescription medicine under such soil. Is young and beautiful like her, and once wanted to promote and explain the prescriptions of Chinese medicine in a short video. As a result, it was reported that it was exaggerated and the video was deleted. She is officially certified, and she is still a member of the Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group, so she is still treated like this in this capacity. What does this mean? It shows that there are still many prejudices in the public's perception of traditional Chinese medicine. It also shows that the first thought of many people when they are sick is to see Western medicine. In such an environment, it is difficult for a doctor who aspires to become a master of prescription to accumulate enough clinical experience in this environment. In his early years, his grandfather Huang Yaoshi went to all parts of the country to hang pots for free, so he accumulated a lot of experience. But in that era of simple folk customs, Grandpa's operation was feasible. And now it's too hard. Without money, it is difficult to move an inch, and it may be suppressed. Unless this white knight can solve some major medical cases that shock China and foreign countries through prescription talents. In this way, the general public can gradually change their perception of Chinese medicine and form a correct understanding. But this is clearly unrealistic and paradoxical. If Baya had that strength, he would have been a master of prescriptions a long time ago. Think of these. Huang Xiaohuai pinched her eyebrows, and suddenly felt that her head was big. Don't think that far ahead. Let's ask the group what they think of the White Knight assessment first. Let's go down to the group first. With such thoughts, Huang Xiaohuai opened the Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group and joined all the staff in the group. Everyone, you don't have to wait until 3 months later, you can now evaluate the assessment results of the White Knight. Let's have our say. After this message was sent, Liang Yuqiu, who introduced Baya to go in, was the first to see it. He was dealing with a serial homicide case involving the fraud of traditional Chinese medicine today, and was lamenting the harsh environment of traditional Chinese medicine now, and suddenly saw Huang Xiaohuai's information. I couldn't help but be stunned. Hurriedly sent a message. Xiaohuai, don't worry. Didn't you say that you would give Baya 3 months? You can't deny Baya's right to assess just because his operation may be improper. At this time, Liang Yuqiu didn't know that Baya had solved Yan Shijun's problem. I just thought that Baya dropped the chain in front of the expert media, so that people at the national level stopped the diagnosis and treatment. That would be a pity. Seeing Liang Yuqiu's message, Huang Xiaohuai couldn't cry or laugh, and sent an explanation message. Professor Liang, you misunderstood what I meant. I mean, Baya has accurately found out the cause of Yan Shijun's infertility. Their infertility problems have gone up in smoke, pregnancy is a sure thing, and there is no need to wait 3 months. See this message. Liang Yukai was dumbfounded. What do you mean? It's only been a long time, less than a day. That's it? It's also solved very accurately, not a joke. Even if the cause is found, it is still difficult to ensure a successful pregnancy, so how can it be said that it is a sure thing? Of course, that's not the point. The key is the problem of Yan Shijun and his wife. He also knows that so many expert medical examinations have been fruitless for 5 or 6 years. How can they solve the problem after looking at it in the white night? It sounds like the national medical teams and experts are eating dry food. At this time, the other members of the group also saw the message sent by Huang Xiaowai, and they were all as stunned as Liang Yukai. Sun Dadao of the typhoid school, no, infertility requires a whole process of follow-up examination and dialectical treatment. How can it be solved in half a day? Zhu Yuanyu of the Xian school, Xiaowai, did you come to the scene and see the effect? If you read a violent novel, you can go to Fila Novel Network. Dr. Shui of the Wen Supplement School, even if you come to the scene in person, what can you do? The standard for passing the assessment is that Yan Shijun and his wife are successfully pregnant, don't forget. Huatong School Jin Yuanzi, yes, Xiaowai, don't be kidding, everyone's time is precious. Even if the cause of infertility is found, it will not pass the assessment, unless the cause is very specific. Indeed, our assessment of Bai Ye is to examine his consideration from taking over to successfully becoming pregnant. Huang Xiaowai looked at everyone's speeches in the group and couldn't help complaining. You guys, you don't pay attention to the white knight at first glance, everyone is on the hot search now. The matter has indeed been resolved satisfactorily. If you don't believe me, you should take a look on the internet. Remind you, don't drink water when you watch, or you'll choke. Look, and you'll know what I mean. Bai Ye, why aren't you bubbling yet? Everyone is talking about you. Seeing Huang Xiaowai complaining, everyone in the group couldn't help but be stunned, and everyone became curious. Could it be that things have developed dramatically, or is it that Bai Ye is the kind of holy son of Chinese medicine that has not been born for 1,000 years? Liang Yukai couldn't help but be stunned. He is also a criminal investigation master of the special case team, and through Huang Xiaowai's information, he immediately found that things may be different from what everyone imagined. With curiosity, he clicked on the hotspot on his mobile phone, then picked up the red dates and wolfberry tea and blew the hot air. I found that Bai Ye's reception had ranked first in the hotspot. It's funny, this little guy has become a celebrity. And the edited short video, I want to take a good look at what's going on. Foreign TV reporter Xiao Sa is here, a big battle. How do you get your assistant to take the pulse? Bai Ye, this guy is taking the pulse of Yan Shijun and his wife at the same time, which is a bit confused. Look at it again, maybe it's a trick to attract heat, huh? This found the cause, I'm afraid of hurting the kidneys, yes, and then. Poof. What? The woman is still a chick. Liang Yukai watched the funny commentary in the short video, and the tea he just drank suddenly spit out. Then the whole person was numb. What age is this, and there will still be such an explosive thing? Rao was well informed, and he was also shocked. You must know that Yan Shijun and his wife are doctoral students, they are both knowledgeable groups, and they actually made such a low-level mistake. It just happened to be bypassed by the national physical examination. This Nima, that's why the novel dares to be made up like this. Liang Yukai looked down at his wet clothes, and couldn't cry or laugh for a while. Ahem. Oh. Ahem. Professor Liang, what's wrong with you? Seeing this, Sumei, a colleague on the side, hurriedly asked with concern. No. It's okay, Liang Yukai immediately stood up and waved his hand, but he couldn't restrain the smile on his face. Then, he immediately realized. Although the case of Yan Shijun and his wife is very funny, It also proves Bai Ye's medical skills. Moreover, it is a technique of 4 diagnoses and joint references. The mastery of Chinese medicine lies in judging what is wrong in the body from the comprehensive information outside the body. This simple pulse cannot tell whether a woman is a virgin or not. It is necessary to analyze a large amount of information, sift through it, and then have the confidence to determine the most unlikely option as the truth. In the medical case of Bai Ye, he may not have tested his medical skills in treating infertility, but his medical skills in looking at and hearing and palpating can make him praise. Of course, this assessment must be biased, but the fault is not in the white knight, it depends on how the members of the group characterize. At this time, Huang Xiaowai was worried that others would not pay attention, so she posted the relevant short video to the group. Soon, many people in the group also saw the hot search, and then they all broke their defenses. Hurt 710 Cold School Sun Dateo, ha ha ha. This is purely a new long. Zhu Yuanyu of the Xian school, laughing to death and decaying. Cough cough. You shouldn't watch it while drinking tea. Dr. Shui of the Wenbu school, ahem. Unexpected. It's so dramatic, who would have thought that this would be the case? Jin Yuangzi of the Huatong school, Xiaowai, this is your mistake, there is a problem with your question itself. Liang Yukai, who is sent by the medical classics, ahem, but in fact, it also proves the level of traditional Chinese medicine in Bai Ye. What do you think of this assessment? Sun Dateo of the Typhoid school, definitely not. Zhu Yuanyu of the Xian school, it's really uncountable. Bai Ye, young man, you judge it yourself. Huang Xiaowai saw the intense discussion in the group, but the party did not bubble in the white knight, and couldn't help but be speechless. This question was pushed by her to Bai Ye, and it stands to reason that she is also responsible, but the question was also passed by Qin Lao. At the same time, we must also look at Qin Lao's opinion. Everyone is indifferent, why don't we take a look at Qin Lao's opinion? Let's see if we give Bai Ye the exam questions again, or let Bai Ye pass. The great doctor sincerely helps the world and saves the people. Qin Lao, are you online? At this time, North Africa on the other side of the globe. Qin Shi is meeting with a North African doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, who has many titles and is also a celebrity in the Dragon Kingdom. Some people call him Han, others call him He. He speaks many dialects of the Dragon Kingdom, and he himself has studied Chinese medicine in the Dragon Kingdom for 20 years. Once opened a traditional Chinese medicine hall in Tianhe City, moved the Dragon Kingdom, and appeared on TV. Later, because of some things, he often traveled back and forth between North Africa and the Dragon Kingdom, and deeply cultivated the way of medicine. Dr. He, your attainments in the field of prescriptions are indeed admirable. Qin Shi said solemnly. It just so happens that you are more familiar with the local flora and fauna. In your opinion, is there a formula for insect medicine that can cure the current problem? When he said this, Qin Shi was looking forward to it. He knew about Black Bethune deeds, and he knew his awesomeness. As a foreigner, it is really a miracle that I can learn Chinese medicine and understand it. Moreover, Qin Shi has also read many of his works, especially on prescriptions, and he is very cooperative with this black doctor. From a certain point of view, this black doctor surpasses Huang Xiaowai and Huang Yaoshi in strength in his heart. After all, the scope of people's activities is not limited to one domain. At this time, when He Wen heard Qin Lao's question, he immediately said respectfully, Elder Qin, for this large-scale stroke and infertility symptoms, I just developed a worm formula. Although there may be minor flaws, there are already some clinical results. I thought it might as well give it a try. Hear this. Qin Shi's face paled slightly. Was it developed by himself? That is, there are still many uncertain factors. However, it can't be helped. It would be nice to find an ancient book that records the right prescription for the symptoms. I remember that I had seen it, but the insect prescription was incomplete, and I didn't know if there was any similarity in Huan's prescription. If it's close, that's right. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Traditional Chinese Medicine, Infertility, Crazy Social Death Patients. Author, Cold Shower in Winter. Chapter 69. Qin Shi asked himself why he believed in the prescriptions of ancient books so much. That's where cultural confidence comes from. The classic works of Chinese medicine in the Dragon Kingdom are as bright as the stars, and those works have been handed down for thousands of years, and there are basically no mistakes. It's like some kind of law from a high-dimensional space-time, and it can be used as a law. For example, meridians and acupuncture points. It is not clear how the ancients studied it, and scientific instruments cannot detect it, but it exists objectively. According to the dialectical arguments in medical books and ancient books, acupuncture and massage can be used to treat diseases, that is, they can play a role in healing. The same goes for those prescriptions. It can be applied almost as a rule. This may be the result of thousands of years of accumulation, and it is formed into words after continuous trial and error. Think about how many people have been born in the Dragon Kingdom for thousands of years, and how many people have experienced many casualties and diseases. Basically, the various illnesses of modern people can be found in history from a dialectical point of view. In addition, he has practiced medicine and saved countless people in his life, and he has taught countless medical experts and professors, so he is even more convinced of this. So, Qin Shi attached so much importance to ancient prescriptions and believed in them. It's just a pity. Many ancient prescriptions have been handed down to this day, but they are still mutilated or lost. In fact, at such an old age, he is still keen to do overseas medical assistance, in addition to promoting traditional Chinese medicine and following national instructions. He also has an original intention that is not known to outsiders. That is, he wanted to look for the prescriptions of Chinese medicine in the Yongle and the 4 encyclopedias overseas. He thought that the ancient scrolls of traditional Chinese medicine might not be circulated abroad. After all, they couldn't be understood, but the Yongle canon and the 4 encyclopedias had been out to sea, and in addition to some museums, they also existed in the folk of various countries. As long as there are Chinese or ethnic Chinese, there may be inheritance. He doesn't need to see the written records, he only needs to see the selection of medicinal materials by people from all over the world, and he can determine whether he has continued to use the prescriptions of ancient books. This confidence comes from his countless clinical and teaching experiences. Now, when Qin Shi heard what Black Bethune said, he was also a little interested in his heart. But don't get your hopes up. After all, Huan also said just now that he developed it. And the real ancient book insect recipe can be taken out directly. Although it will be different from the local climate season, it is only necessary to adjust the medicinal properties of each medicine in the monarch and minister, so the efficacy will not be biased. And the insect recipe developed by Black Bethune is difficult to say. The local symptoms of stroke and infertility are new diseases, and this is unlikely to have extensive clinical experience. From a rigorous point of view, Black Bethune's worm recipe could still be wrong. Come to think of this. Qin Shi came back to his senses, looked at Black Bethune, and nodded slightly. It's good to have a curative effect. However, the prescription still needs to be rigorous, and it must be supported by a sufficient amount of clinical data. The most important thing is to have regular check-ups for different groups of people. Hearing Qin Lao say this, He Wen nodded, and his heart was also flooded with ripples. He is actually very confident in his prescription medical skills. Just like he is confident in his ability to learn. Back then, in order to learn Chinese medicine, he studied Chinese hard for decades. Once in order to listen to Ni Guanghai's traditional Chinese medicine class, he would take the green train from Tianhe City to the imperial capital every week, rain or shine. His spirit was touched by teacher Ni Guanghai and he was accepted as a disciple. After that, he studied the theory of traditional Chinese medicine with Mr. Ni Guanghai for 8 years, and then studied with many folk masters of traditional Chinese medicine, and read a lot of famous works of traditional Chinese medicine. During this period, he also got acquainted with a barefoot doctor, who is said to be a diving boss in the Chinese imperial doctor group. He studied medicine under his tutelage and opened a TCM clinic with the encouragement of a barefoot doctor. More than 10 years of clinical experience has been accumulated. He is quite confident in his abilities in various fields of Chinese medicine. Therefore, looking at Qin Lao's not too optimistic attitude towards his insect side, He Yun immediately suggested, "Is old Qin free now? I'll take you to see the insect medicine I developed now. By the way, let me see the changes in those patients." "How?" The voice fell. Qin Shi's mobile phone suddenly diddy twice, and he glanced at it. It was the news of the Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group. "I wanted to open it and take a look, but when I thought of my current position, I was really interested in the worm side of Black Bethune." He put his phone away, looked at Black Bethune, and nodded. "That's very good. Dr. Black, let's go." "Not much." The two arrived at He Yun's clinic. Qin Shi also quickly saw the insect recipe he had developed. He picked it up and sniffed it, and couldn't help frowning a little. Looked at Fang Zi and said bluntly, "Rhino horns, black scorpions, toads, the idea of fighting poison with poison and treating the symptoms and drugs is right, but these poisons are too great. It's fine for strong young adults to take a small dose, but for those who are weak to take it, I'm afraid it's not appropriate. As far as I know, the local government's medical insurance also provides them with free antibiotics, and many people take them, which will cause them to be weak." Did Dr. Black think about this? Hearing Elder Qin say this, He Yun replied respectfully, "It is worthy of Qin Lao," and he got to the crux of the problem at once. "These properties are really poisonous, so I have made improvements in compatibility and processing. A little raw aconite and ginger are used for compatibility, and the ancient recipe of 9 steaming and 9 drying is used in the processing. And in terms of dosage, to be honest, it still needs to be supported by clinical data. Judging from the feedback so far, the effect is still okay. Elder Qin, please come and take a look with me." "Good." Hearing He Wen say this, Qin Shi nodded. Then he followed him to the patient area, and then patiently checked the pulse of several patients. The main symptoms of these patients are strokes of varying degrees. Severe cases require support to walk on the ground, and mild cases can move freely. The patients who seem to have recovered and been discharged from the hospital have been found to be infertile in the long-term follow-up investigation. The examination found that a large amount of kidney essence was deficient, and the problem of the upper middle and lower 3 focal points was serious from the perspective of traditional Chinese medicine lecturer. It shows that the disease is very toxic. Therefore, the rule of use of He Yun's medicine is to follow the principle of fighting poison with poison. At this time, after Qin Shi observed the symptoms, he found that although the pulse of these patients was still unstable, it did improve a lot. However, it is only in the reduction of stroke symptoms, and the supplement of kidney essence is still lacking. But still appreciative. Yes, Dr. Black, they didn't have an uncomfortable toxic reaction for the time being, which is the greatest success. Later, in terms of medication, we should pay more attention to Fuang, start with a small dose, and decoction first and decoction for a long time. After receiving Qin Lao's praise, Black Bethune was a little flattered, and immediately nodded excitedly. Yes. It should be added or subtracted according to the evidence. After all, physical functions and conditions are dynamically changing. It's a long-term process. The voice fell. Qin Shi's mobile phone heard the sound of diddy again, and he glanced at it. it was still the Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group who was eyed him. Old Qin, you have to be busy beforehand. Seeing this, Black Bethune proposed. Okay, Qin Shi already knew the pros and cons of his insect formula, so he shifted his attention to the information of the Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group. It's also strange in my heart. I don't know what will happen to Atham. Usually he is a diver like many big guys. Recently, I have participated in the discussion of the newcomer assessment, and it should not be because of the newcomer assessment. No, it shouldn't be. It's said that the 3-month assessment period is less than a day. With doubts, Qin Shi opened the group information, but he didn't expect to discuss the assessment of the newcomer by yet. Look carefully at the messages one by one. Knowing the whole story, Qin Shi was also a little crying and laughing. Then he sent a message instructing. Of course, I can't do it, and the questions and solutions do not reflect the guidelines and strategies of TCM treatment. Regarding the assessment of the newcomer White Knight, it still needs to be redesigned. What do you think? Agree to the deduction of 1. Soon, there were rows of ones in the group. Typhoid School Sun Dateo 1. If you read a violent novel, go to Fila Novel Network. Xian School Zuyuan Yu, 1. Dr. Shui of the Wen Supplement School, 1. Huangzai Y, a family of imperial doctors, then 1. Vinyang Sek Chi Xia, 1. How is Qin Lao's progress in North Africa? Seeing that someone was concerned about his current situation, Qin Shi immediately sent the recently collected information and the situation on Hain's side to the group in the form of photos. You can take a look and brainstorm ideas. It's still the original idea. If there is a symptomatic insect prescription in ancient books, it would be good. Finish sending these. Qin Shi suddenly came to the table, so he casually put his mobile phone on the table. Dr. Black, I'm going to the bathroom. Okay. Black Bethune nodded, and then found that Qin Lao had forgotten to bring his mobile phone. I was about to remind him, but I found that Qin Lao seemed to be inconvenient to bring his mobile phone to the toilet, and I heard that Qin Lao did not have the habit of looking at his mobile phone when he went to the toilet and ate. In Qin Lao's words, it is to concentrate on the operation of the body and fully mobilize the functions of the body's internal organs and stomach. This is also a wellness strategy, so there is no reminder. Let Qin Lao's mobile phone screen light up, and what was displayed on it was the chat history of the Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group. Meanwhile, the other side. Baiye found that the medicine depot in his small hospital was too scarce, so he looked at Li Jiajia and asked. By the way, Jiajia, do you know the purchase channels of Chinese herbal medicines? Yes. Li Jiajia nodded when she heard this. Be regular. White Knight reminder. Of course, my dad identified a few. He is the secretary of the municipal party committee. Who dares to fool him? Li Jiajia said as a matter of course. That's good. Hearing Li Jiajia say this, Baiye nodded. I'll write some common recipes and common medicinal materials, and help me contact the manufacturer to buy them. Okay, leave it to me, he. Li Jiajia said with a smile. Being able to solve the boss's worries made her inexplicably happy. Then he suddenly proposed. Boss, it's almost evening, I want to invite you to my school for dinner. How's it going? Do you appreciate your face? Is it the cafeteria of Fudan University? Baiye heard this, thinking that no one should come in the evening, so he nodded. It's okay, go sightseeing at your school. He, that's it? Hearing Baiye's promise, Li Jiajia suddenly smiled like a flower. Just now, a son-in-law always sent her harassing messages and wanted to chase her, but she said that she had a boyfriend, and people still didn't believe it. It's just enough to use the boss to pretend to be a bag. After all, that son-in-law is also the second generation of officials, so it is not good to refuse directly. His father is not the secretary of the municipal party committee, but he is also the mayor of the department level, and he may be transferred to the provincial capital, which means that he may become a deputy minister like her father. It's not easy to offend this way. Baya naturally didn't know Li Jiajia's careful thoughts, and when he was free, he suddenly found that there were people in the Huaxia Chinese medicine group who had eyed him many times. Now that he began to pay attention to this group, it was natural for him to open it and look at it. I immediately knew that the group members were discussing about his assessment. Unexpectedly, the assessment was invalidated. It seems that the threshold is quite high. The corners of Bai's mouth hooked slightly, and he suddenly became somewhat interested in the group members. Traditional Chinese medicine is broad and profound, and although he has systematic assistance, the more he understands, the more he finds that his knowledge is still lacking. The high threshold in the group means that there will be high-level people in the group. Being recognized by a master, or conquering a master of traditional Chinese medicine, can give him a sense of achievement. It seems that you can find an appropriate opportunity to show your hands in the group. And this opportunity was quickly found by him. Soon, Baya saw the medical assistant's itinerary records and patient pictures sent by Qin Lao. Suddenly, my heart lit up. Isn't it very simple that Qin Lao wants the worm formula? It just so happens that the system has transmitted all the data of the ancient book to my mind, and these symptoms are recorded in an ancient book. Although there is a big geographical gap between North Africa and the Dragon Kingdom, if you look at it dialectically, there is no problem with the same treatment in different places, the right medicine, and the dosage and processing. Come to think of this. White Knight searched the internet again for the geographical characteristics and unique insect creatures of North Africa. Soon summed up a set of insect recipes. Send a message in the group immediately. From the perspective of symptoms, most of their strokes are caused by yin deficiency, wind movement, phlegm, heat, and solid intestines, and the manifestation of infertility is mostly liver and kidney yin deficiency. All things considered, I have a recipe that guarantees excellent efficacy. Leeches and turtle insects are steamed and concocted in 9 suns to reduce toxicity and break stasis. Then it was accompanied by a whole scorpion and a centipede to replenish qi and calm the nerves. Then a zombie silkworm should be used in particular, but it is estimated that there is no such species in North Africa, and it can be replaced with rhinoceros dung, which is the point. But after Baya posted the message in the group, after a while, no one commented. Although it seems that there is such a thing, after all, the White Knight people are not in North Africa, and everyone does not believe that Baya can determine the symptoms of the patient completely through the photos sent by Qin Lao. At the very least, the pulse cannot be conveyed through pictures. Therefore, they decided that even if Baya knew some prescriptions, he would not be able to prescribe the right medicine. After a while, a few kindly reminded Baya not to be arrogant. Baya couldn't help but cry and laugh when he saw that he was left out. It is said that the truth is hard to discern, and it seems that they will not believe it if they do not verify it in practice. At this time, Huang Xiaowai couldn't help but light up when he saw the insect prescription given by Baya, but then shook his head again. It seems that this guy knows quite a lot, but it always feels like he is talking on paper. The list of worms is the most cautious, because the toxicity is too great, and this guy doesn't mention a word. I don't believe he can understand the symptoms by looking at the photos from afar. Grandpa, come and see Baya Fa. Huang Yaoshi was about to turn around and leave, when he heard his granddaughter say that he would prescribe insect prescriptions in the White Knight. He couldn't help but be interested, and then looked at it seriously. He also nodded in praise, and shook his head with a sigh. The idea is good, but it's too whimsical. It seems that this kid's thinking is still a little old-fashioned. If you follow me, I'm afraid it will not be easy to break the previous habits. In that case, I should carefully consider whether I should take him as an apprentice. At this time, on the Black Bethune side, he didn't want to peek at Qin Lao's mobile phone, but the mobile phone kept ringing diddy. I couldn't help but glance at it. I happened to see the relevant pictures of Qin Laofa in the Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group again, so I couldn't help but continue to look at it. Then, I soon saw the message sent by Bayet. Then the whole body suddenly bounced up, and almost trembled and came to Qin Shi's mobile phone. Every word sent out by the White Knight made his soul tremble. He is a pioneer in this disease research and knows the problems he is currently facing. That is to say, the more Western medicine treats, the worse it gets, while Chinese medicine is effective, but Chinese medicine is diverse, and dialectical treatment according to the pairing of medicinal properties is as complex as permutation and combination. This made him confused for a while, and he could only test according to the rules, so that he had the current imperfect insect formula, but it was also very good. But when he saw the insect prescription given by Bayet, he suddenly felt that a spiritual light hit his heavenly spirit cover. "Assistant, come here. I'm going to go out right now. You remember to give this mobile phone to Qin Lao." He was so excited that he couldn't wait to test it through the White Knight's worm recipe. Because he found that Qin Lao's mobile phone was about to run out of battery, he had to write it down immediately and then take action. Traditional Chinese Medicine, Infertility, Crazy Social Death Patients. Author, Cold Shower in Winter. Chapter 70. Heatheny walked quickly to the office. The mood that has not been sunny for a long time blooms. Leeches, turtle insects, whole scorpions, centipedes, rhinoceros feces. He happened to have studied some local rhino feces, and knew that rhino feces could combine some toxicity. Not only that, but when paired with other herbs, it can also have a buff effect. Amazing. It's like finding the optimal solution for medical treatment in the results of complex permutations and combinations. The group of Chinese imperial doctors is really full of masters. Black Bethune ran excitedly, and at the same time, his heart couldn't help but be filled with layers of shock. He remembered that the nickname given to the person who gave the insect fang was Bayet, but it was a name he had never heard before. Of course, that's not the point. The point is that if you have not been to North Africa, it is difficult to fully understand the medicinal properties of local rhinoceros feces. After all, the medicinal properties of rhinoceros feces are different in different regions. This master of the White Knight must not have been to North Africa, otherwise he should have known him. Therefore, it is likely that the master deduced the medicinal properties of local rhinoceros feces based on geographical and climatic data. This is really amazing. It is equivalent to looking at the sky and knowing the world. Moreover, the master was not present in person, but he was so familiar with the symptoms that it was like taking the pulse himself. Otherwise, how could such a wonderful insect prescription be prescribed for the symptoms? It's incredible. It's too much to praise the miracle doctor. When Huan thought of this, his heart sighed again and again. This kind of medical skill, compared with my master's barefoot doctor, is also equal. Could it be that this White Knight master is the master's new disciple? But that's not right. I heard that the master had long since returned to the mountains and forests, and went to guard the dragon vein with the founding ancestors of the dragon kingdom, and he had long since stopped accepting apprentices. But if not, the country doesn't seem to have heard of the awesome Bai family of traditional Chinese medicine. Strange, it seems that I should pay a visit if I have a chance. Thinking about it, Heatheny quickly returned to his office. Then, according to his super memory, he silently wrote down the insect recipe of the White Knight word for word. Next, contact the medicine collection factory. No. I'm going to go myself. Said. He Hunt didn't also inform Qin Lao about his itinerary, so he hurried away. On the one hand, he felt that Elder Qin would see the information of the Huaxia Imperial Doctor Group sooner or later. On the other hand, the number of patients in North Africa is increasing, and the task of formulating a prescription is urgent when Western medicine cannot cure the disease. Meanwhile, After Qin Shi, who was wearing a tunic suit, came out of the bathroom, he was also a little surprised to find that Black Bethune had already left. He also had some advice. "Elder Qin, this is your mobile phone." Then Heavenly's assistant came up and spoke. "The phone turned off automatically due to a lack of power, and we were just charging your phone. Do you need to continue charging?" Hearing this, Qin Shi was slightly stunned, took the phone, and then spoke. "No, my old 897 head mobile phone is used less, generally no one looks for me, I use an email address to find me, I like to be clean. By the way, what about Dr. Black?" Mr. Kundi said that he had something urgent to do, so he left first, sorry. When Assistant Ho Hyun heard this, he replied respectfully. Kundi was the surname of Hyun, and when Qin Shi heard this, he nodded. The profession of a doctor is like this, if there is an urgent matter, it must be dealt with immediately, and there is no need to care too much about the world. He also understands this. He spoke to Assistant Black Hune. "Please tell Mr. Kundi that I will come back often to pay attention to the changes in my condition. Let him be cautious about his medication." Confession. Qin Shi left by himself, and he didn't think about turning on his phone first. It's his willfulness. At his age, he doesn't have much time to be awake, and he doesn't like to be robbed of too much attention by his mobile phone when he works during the day. Therefore, in the case that there was no IT in the White Knight in the group, Qin Shi missed the insect information of the White Knight. But fortunately, it was seen by Hyun. Otherwise, if Qin Shi saw the insect fang of the White Knight, he would definitely be even more excited than Black Bethune. Alas, the true law smells bad, and the truth is hard to find. Qin Shi walked outside and couldn't help but sigh. Human science and technology are developing with each passing day, but the perception of the world has never been objective. After all, the five senses of human beings only rely on electromagnetic interaction forces, and the sense of smell and taste only needs more than 1,000 proteins to complete their functions. But there are many undetectable things in the real world we live in, such as tons of dark matter and so on. How did the ancients discover the meridians and acupuncture points of the human body through meditation? Those are like the laws of law. Alas, if we can collect more ancient medical scriptures, through induction, we may be able to solve the current problem of insects. At this time, the other side of the globe. Compound Egg University. Baye turned off the live broadcast very willfully, and followed Li Jiajia to the familiar campus. Looking at those energetic young people, the mood suddenly improved. However, he always felt that Li Jiajia was hiding something from him. Because Li Jiajia's body movements are too intimate. It's easy to mistake people for boyfriend and girlfriend. Of course. Baye also enjoys the feeling of strolling around the campus with the school flower beauty, but it feels weird, after all, I just met. Jengu was suspicious. Saw Li Jiajia pushing him with his elbow. "Boss, you're here, the return rate is so high. All the way, those girls, Daej, are secretly watching you." Yes. Hearing Li Jiajia say this, Baye raised his head and smiled faintly. "I didn't pay attention. It's so dull." Li Jiajia glanced at Baye and laughed softly. "I'm about to be killed by the eyes of those little girls, and they are all envious of having a handsome guy like you, boss. Especially those who are in the class and the internet celebrities in the art performance department. You didn't find out, did you?" Hearing Li Jiajia say this, Baye smiled faintly and did not reply. In fact, since coming into contact with traditional Chinese medicine, the perception of beauty has also undergone some changes. For example, from the perspective of traditional Chinese medicine, a big nose is a kind of beauty, but modern girls generally don't like their noses too big. So what kind of beauties Li Jiajia talked about, in Baye's opinion, are average. Hee, do you think we look like a little couple? Seeing Baye in a daze, Li Jiajia suddenly spoke. Hearing this, Baya looked at Li Jiajia's eyes and said leisurely. Jiajia, I feel like there's something wrong with you. Tell me, after all, it's my staff, and I can accommodate your request appropriately. Hear this. A trace of embarrassment flashed in Li Jiajia's beautiful eyes, and then she replied shyly. Actually, I want to ask my boss to pretend to be my boyfriend. Said. Her little face was already flushed, and she subconsciously felt that she was presumptuous and climbing. So he immediately added. Of course, it's not gratuitous, if the boss wants to treat me badly or kiss me, too, yes, too. In addition, doesn't the boss want to buy medicinal herbs, I can also let my dad directly deliver them to the store for free. Look, okay. After speaking, Li Jiajia felt that her cheeks were very hot. I didn't expect that I, as the daughter of the secretary of the municipal party committee, would be so shy when she expressed her ambiguity in front of Bayet. And hearing Li Jiajia say this, Bayet was also a little surprised. He touched Li Jiajia's forehead and looked at her palmistry again. Then he spoke. I see, you're in the spring. Don't be shy, it's normal to have those thoughts if you've been single for too long. I can be your fake boyfriend, but don't forget that you're currently my assistant. Understood? Yes, sir. Hearing Bayet say this, Li Jiajia suddenly smiled like a flower. However, smiling and smiling, she couldn't help but feel a little guilty in her heart. Because her original intention was to use the White Knight as a shield. I hope that the second generation of officials who want to chase her will give up harassment after seeing her with Bayet. Thinking of this, she suddenly felt that she couldn't let Bayet suffer, and she had to make up for Bayet's possible losses. If you read a violent novel, go to Filu Novel Network. At this time, Bayet didn't know Li Jiajia's careful thoughts. His face is still light and breezy, and he is also very comfortable walking on the campus with beautiful women to accompany him. Walking, though, walking. He suddenly found that Li Jiajia's hand was tight. Then he looked ahead. But I saw a handsome boy looking at Li Jiajia. Next to the handsome boy, there is also a middle-aged man with a big belly. The middle-aged man was wearing a leadership jacket, and the hall was full of air. In the memory of the predecessor, I also have the impression of this middle-aged man, who is the mayor of the magic capital. The mayor's work is very busy, and being able to meet him on campus also surprises Bayet. And next to the mayor, there are three entourages, presumably comrades from the municipal departments. Looking at the posture, they should accompany the leaders to the grassroots level to inspect. Jiajia, what a coincidence, the boy stepped forward with a warm smile. Hello Wang. Li Jiajia nodded, and then looked at the middle-aged man behind him. I didn't think Uncle Wang was here too. Jiajia, it's a coincidence, cough cough, Xiao Feng mentioned you just now. Wang Jun coughed and looked at the daughter of his old classmate Li Dakang, who was also happy. He knew that his son Wang Feng liked Li Jiajia, and he also encouraged his son to bravely pursue the daughter of the secretary of the municipal party committee. At this time, hearing Li Jiajia's question, he patted his chest and said with a smile. This weekend, ahem, I just happened to have a little matter to find your school director, so I came to see Xiao Feng by the way. By the way, he recently participated in the live broadcast of Seeing Out of the Champion, cough cough, in it is a Western medicine andrology doctor, does Jiajia pay attention? Hearing this, Li Jiajia nodded politely and said with a faint smile. I've heard of it. She knew that there were only two doctor anchors on this show. One is Bayet, and the other is Wang Feng. Bayet is a traditional Chinese medicine doctor who looks at infertility, while Wang Feng specializes in andrology, and the live broadcast content is to teach teenagers how to scientifically catheterize. It is called Liberating Pressure, and it is all about Western medicine. Obviously, the theory of Western medicine has been updated and iterated, and Wang Feng is still self-contained, misleading people in the live broadcast room all day long. Has long been regarded as the #1 quack model by the bar friends who quit sex, and they don't know it. Moreover, Wang Feng is not good at academics, and he also engages in academic fraud. It made her feel sick. If it weren't for this guy's father's face, she really wanted to slap Wang Feng twice. Tell him again to stop harassing her. Well, you're all young people, and you both like medicine, so you can communicate more. Wang Jun assisted his son, and after a few simple words, he was sweating profusely, obviously very weak. Then he glanced at the young man beside Li Jiajia. But I saw that this young man had sword eyebrows and starry eyes, and his weapons were extraordinary, but he was a talent. Yes, Jiajia, our two families are close, and we have time to communicate more. At this time, Wang Feng answered, looking at Bai Ye with a smile in his eyes. Seems to be a gentle son-in-law. Li Jiajia was very sick to her stomach when she heard Wang Feng's words. She intimately pulled Bai Ye's arm and said with a smile. Okay, teaching and learning are mutually beneficial. By the way, this is my boyfriend, let's communicate with each other then. Wang Gongzi has no opinion, right? Oh, this talented man is Jiajia's boyfriend. Hearing Li Jiajia's words, Wang Feng smiled at the corner of his mouth. Jiajia said with a smile, there are friends from afar, and it's too late for me to welcome them. As he spoke, there was a look of concern on his face. Jiajia, in fact, I was worried that you would be lonely because you were single. I didn't think you found a boyfriend so soon. I'm so happy for you. Li Jiajia said with a smile when she heard this. Then I really thank you for caring. Then let's go first. After speaking, Li Jiajia took Bai Ye's hand and walked past Wang Feng. Uncle Wang, you are busy, let's go. Ahem. Okay, Wang Jun heard this, coughed a few times, and nodded. As he spoke, a feeling of tightness in his chest came up, and he gasped for breath a few times before he eased. Mayor Wang, are you okay? The comrade next to him asked with concern when he saw this. Wang Jun wiped his sweat and said dryly. It's okay, maybe I haven't had a good rest in the past 2 days. You sweat a lot, Chinese medicine says that sweating hurts yang, it's best to go to the hospital to see. The comrade next to him suggested. Well, let's see later, it's too troublesome to go to the hospital for a checkup. Wang Jun said. This way. Wang Feng looked at the backs of Li Jiajia and the others, and the smile on his face gradually solidified. At the same time, he sneered with compassion in his heart. White knights, white knights. Thought I didn't know about you. The whole champion in the line program is just us two doctors. You are really a toad who can't look in the mirror, and you dare to pretend to be Jiajia's boyfriend with any background. It really makes the master very unhappy. If you are a Chinese medicine practitioner who looks at infertility, you should find all the actors to perform according to the script to rush to the first place in popularity. It's 100 times worse than what I did to buy fans. What kind of goods do you have, and you dare to surpass me in popularity? Now the old and new hatreds add up, look at me if I don't look for a navy to hack you. Wang Jun was jealous. Then, when he suddenly saw his father retching against the wall, his face panicked, and he hurriedly stepped forward to check. Dad, are you all right? At this time, Bai Ye and Li Jiajia just walked out not long ago. Bai Ye suddenly stopped. In the memory of the predecessor, this Mayor Wang is a good comrade. Now that he knows that the mayor is sick, as a Chinese medicine doctor, he subconsciously wants to check it out. Jiajia, your uncle Wang is not in good health and may need first aid. I'll take a look. Huh? Okay. Hearing Bai Ye say this, Li Jiajia nodded. She also felt that Wang Jun's face was not quite right just now, but it was just a weak body, and now it seems that it may be a big problem. After all, this Wang Jun is her father's old classmate, and his son hates it, but as an old man, he is still quite upright, and he really can't ignore it. So, he followed Bai Ye to Wang Jun's side. "I'm Bai Ye, a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, let me take a look at Mayor Wang's situation," Bai Ye said to the people beside Wang Jun. When Wang Feng heard this, he wanted to refuse, but Bai Ye's tone had an undoubted aura, which immediately stunned them. Bai Ye immediately grabbed Wang Jun's palm and observed the palmistry. Just now, looking at the face, it was simply judged that Wang Jun was suffering from liver stagnation and qi knots, and at the same time, his kidney yin was deficient. Now look at palmistry. It was found that his palms had special scattered blood streaks, and there were some bloody moles on the back of his hands. It doesn't feel good. It is likely that there is liver cancer. It's early days, though. After roughly judging, Bai Ye immediately used the guidance and percussion method in traditional Chinese medicine, and some fingers pressed some of Wang Jun's acupuncture points to relieve his liver and invigorate qi. This guide is the guide technique he has read in medical books, and it is used without acupuncture, although the effect is not as good as acupuncture, but it is also very useful. Soon. Just when Wang Feng wanted to drink the white night, his father Wang Jun's face suddenly improved. This change fell into the eyes of Wang Feng and the others, and they were stunned. Especially Wang Feng, looking at Bai Ye's eyes, it became complicated. It seems that this kid really knows some Chinese medicine, it is really jealous. Ahem, Wang Jun coughed a few more times, opened his eyes, and found that the young man just now was taking his pulse. Was stunned for a moment. And the young man's next words made him confused. "Mayor Wang, your situation is a bit special, you have to listen to me later, otherwise it may kill you."